Hi everybody. Tonight I invite you to join me on a slow, winding journey into a story that whispers beneath the surface of one of the most enchanting cities in the world, Paris. Our tale will gently unfold the curious and unsettling mystery of the catacombs that lie beneath its gilded streets. This is a story not of sudden frights or loud terrors, but of a quiet, creeping enigma, a story of forgotten tunnels, silent shadows, and a mystery that has murmured in hushed tones through the centuries. The catacombs of Paris, known to many as a macabre tourist attraction, were once the silent resting place of over 6 million souls. Yet, beneath this veneer of history and stone, there lingers a puzzle, one wrapped in the soft rustling of unseen footsteps, whispered names, and a presence that seems at times to drift unseen through the endless corridors. And so tonight, as you settle into your soft cocoon of warmth and quiet, I will begin the first chapter of our journey together, a journey meant not to startle, but to gently pull you into a world of curious wonder and lingering mystery. It all began on a cool autumn evening in the year 1861. The air in Paris hung thick with a faint mist, curling around the edges of old stone buildings and settling gently upon the winding streets. The city bustled softly with the muted clatter of carriage wheels and the low murmur of distant voices. The Seine flowed like a ribbon of dark silk beneath the old bridges, its waters catching only the faintest glimmers of the evening lanterns. In a modest apartment near the Rue Saint-Jacques, a young man named Etienne Delaroche stood before his writing desk, absently thumbing the edge of a faded parchment. Etienne was not a man of grand adventures or sweeping passions. He was, in truth, a quiet cartographer, one whose days were filled with careful lines, measured angles, and the silent patience required for the art of map-making. But on this evening, his hands trembled slightly as he stared at the parchment's peculiar design. It had arrived by post that morning, rolled tightly and bound with a crimson thread. There was no sender's name, no note, only the map itself, drawn in delicate, painstaking detail. At first glance, it appeared to be a common survey of the catacombs beneath Paris, a network Etienne had often mapped in his studies. But upon closer inspection, he noticed something strange. This map bore markings unlike any he had ever seen. Tiny symbols etched in the margins, intricate loops and winding paths that seemed to lead beyond the documented passages. There were faint ink stains resembling eyes, sketched faces in the corners, and a single word scrawled in the lower right. Soothe. Follow. Etienne's heart gave a soft, uncertain thud. He leaned closer, tracing the lines with a cautious finger. The familiar corridors of the catacombs, the ossuaries, the narrow tunnels, the hidden chambers were all there. But this map hinted at something more. A passage that appeared to sink deeper beneath the layers of stone and bone, far beyond the known maps, curving away from the paths trodden by explorers and caretakers. The soft tap of rain began against the window, a delicate rhythm that mingled with the slow crackle of the fire in the hearth. Etienne felt a strange calm settle over him, laced with the smallest thread of unease. The catacombs had long been a subject of whispered stories, tales of wanderers who vanished without trace, of soft voices heard in the dark, of footsteps echoing where no one walked. And yet, there was something deeply alluring in the idea of following this map, of uncovering a hidden path beneath the city he so loved. He had always been a man of quiet curiosity, a seeker of patterns, a lover of hidden things. Perhaps this was merely a forgotten draft from a fellow cartographer. Perhaps it was an old joke, a playful puzzle meant for another's eyes. Or perhaps it was an invitation. As the night deepened, Etienne found himself unable to look away. His tea grew cold upon the desk. The hours slipped by with the soft hush of turning pages as he compared the strange map with his own collection of catacomb surveys. And time and again he returned to the same conclusion. The passage marked on this curious map did not exist in any official record. At last, as the clock struck midnight, Etienne rose slowly from his chair. He folded the mysterious map with careful hands, slipping it into the inner pocket of his coat. Outside, the rain whispered gently against the cobbled streets, and the distant bell of Notre Dame rang out, soft and solemn in the hush of the sleeping city. With a steadying breath, Etienne reached for his lantern and wrapped his scarf loosely about his neck. He had mapped the known catacombs before. He had walked their silent corridors, measured their damp walls, and traced their winding paths. But tonight he would follow the unseen path, the thread that whispered in ink and shadow. And so, with quiet footsteps and a heart wrapped in curiosity, Etienne Delaroche stepped into the gentle dark of the Parisian night, unaware that his simple act of following a map would begin a journey that would wind softly, yet inexorably, into the heart of a mystery the city had long forgotten. Beneath the flickering gaslights and the soft lull of the midnight rain, a quiet shadow passed along the streets, toward an entrance known only to those who truly listened to the silence beneath Paris. The faint glow of Etienne's lantern swayed gently as he walked, casting soft golden halos upon the wet cobblestones. The air of the Parisian night wrapped around him like a cool silken shawl, quiet, steady, and unhurried. The rhythmic sound of his boots echoed softly in the stillness, each step a gentle reminder that he was crossing an invisible threshold between the known and the quietly mysterious. He moved southward along Rue Saint-Jacques, his pace unhurried, savouring the muted tranquillity of the sleeping city. Though Paris was vast and alive with countless stories, tonight it seemed to hold its breath, its ancient stones watching in quiet expectation. Etienne passed familiar landmarks, a shuttered bakery, the darkened silhouette of a small chapel, each a silent sentinel to his solitary passage. At last, he reached the edge of the Montparnasse district, where a narrow alley slipped unnoticed between two weathered buildings. Few would have given it a second glance. Yet within its shadowed embrace, beneath a worn archway of crumbling stone, there lay a half-forgotten entrance, a gate to the underworld, known to only a rare few. Etienne paused, the soft rain still whispering on the brim of his hat. He glanced once more at the folded map in his pocket, its curious symbols pressing faintly against his chest. With slow, deliberate hands, he lifted the old iron latch. It gave a quiet groan of protest, a sound like a sigh from deep within the earth itself, and the door yielded, swinging inward with a reluctant grace. Beyond it stretched a narrow stone staircase, its steps descending into a darkness that seemed to breathe with a soft, waiting hush. Etienne lifted his lantern, the warm light spilling gently into the void, kissing the rough walls with a glow of honeyed amber. The air beyond the threshold was cool, tinged faintly with the scent of damp stone and the soft mineral tang of earth long undisturbed. Without a word, without a backward glance, Etienne stepped inside. The descent was slow, his footsteps softened by the worn stone beneath him. The walls of the staircase closed gently around him, like the quiet arms of the earth drawing him inward. The catacombs of Paris had many entrances, some known, many hidden. This one, tucked quietly away, was one he had discovered during his early days as a cartographer, though he had never ventured beyond the threshold until now. At the foot of the staircase, the narrow passage opened into a low corridor, its ceiling arching in a soft, ancient curve. The walls bore the marks of old tools, chisels, picks, etched into the stone by hands long vanished into dust. The faintest echoes of his footsteps traced after him as he moved, their soft cadence swallowed quickly by the endless hush of the subterranean world. He walked on, deeper and deeper, his lantern casting gentle halos on the damp walls. The familiar ossuaries began to appear, rows of carefully stacked bones, skulls resting in solemn silence atop neat pillars of femurs and tibias. The bones seemed almost serene in the soft light, their hollow gazes undisturbed by the passage of time. Etienne moved with respectful quiet, his heart steady, his mind focused. He had mapped these corridors before, each turn and chamber etched carefully into his mind's eye, but tonight he followed not the familiar paths, but the silent guidance of the map pressed against his heart. At length he reached a narrow fork in the corridor, a place where the known paths split. To the left, a passage led toward the open ossuaries visited by the rare tour group or daring wanderer. To the right, a tunnel barely more than a crawl space wound away into the dark, marked by a faint, almost invisible symbol, a tiny circle with a line drawn through its heart. Etienne's breath caught softly. That mark, it was there on the map, the first sign. He stepped toward it, raising his lantern to reveal the faint trace of ink drawn upon the stone itself. It was old, so old that the ink had almost vanished into the patina of time. Yet it was there, undeniable, waiting quietly for eyes that knew how to see. With a soft exhale, Etienne crouched and began his careful passage into the narrow tunnel. The air grew cooler, the walls pressing gently inwards, their damp surfaces brushing lightly against his shoulders. The earth seemed to hum with a quiet, living pulse, a soft, rhythmic beat that echoed faintly through the silence. The crawl space wound on, twisting gently, descending in slow, graceful spirals. Etienne moved with patient care, his lantern held steady, its light a soft guardian against the embracing dark. The map's lines danced in his memory. This was right. This was the path. After what felt like an hour, though perhaps it was only moments, he emerged into a small chamber, no larger than a city parlour. The walls were smooth, the ceiling low. At its centre stood a stone archway, half hidden beneath draping roots and a thin veil of damp moss. The arch was unlike any Etienne had ever seen in the catacombs. It bore no markings of Parisian masons, no chisel scars or structural braces. Instead, its surface was impossibly smooth, as though the stone had been shaped by unseen hands. Across its apex, faint letters curled in an elegant, ancient script, one that stirred a distant memory in Etienne's mind, though he could not recall where he had seen it before. The map had shown this archway, drawn with a precise, almost reverent care. This was the first true mystery, the first whisper of something beyond the known world. Etienne stepped closer, the soft glow of his lantern reflecting gently upon the stone. His heart beat slow and even, wrapped in a curious calm. He reached out, fingertips grazing the smooth surface of the arch. The stone was cool beneath his touch, cool, but not lifeless. It seemed to hum faintly, a soft vibration that danced lightly along his skin. And then, as if stirred by the quiet of his presence, a soft breeze stirred from beyond the archway, a gentle exhale carrying with it the faintest whisper of voices long forgotten, their tones so soft they might have been imagined. Etienne closed his eyes, standing in the hush of the ancient chamber. He felt neither fear nor haste, only a deep, abiding sense of curiosity, as soft and compelling as the night itself. The archway waited, silent and patient, its threshold untouched by the centuries. And as Etienne stood before it, lantern held softly aloft, the quiet pulse of the unseen mystery seemed to call, not with words nor with sound, but with a feeling as ancient as the stones beneath his feet. With a breath as gentle as a whisper, he stepped forward. The passage beyond the archway welcomed Etienne with a silence so profound it seemed almost sacred. The gentle flicker of his lantern painted long, soft shadows along the smooth stone walls, which curved inwards with a grace not crafted by human hands. Here the air felt different, cool, yes, but carrying a faint, fragrant undertone that stirred soft memories of rain-soaked earth and faded parchment. Etienne moved slowly, each step light, as though he feared to disturb the quiet balance of the place. The corridor stretched ahead in a gentle curve, its surface gleaming faintly in the lantern's soft light. No dust lingered on the ground. No cobwebs adorned the corners. It was as if this passage existed in a realm untouched by time, waiting in quiet patience for a seeker who dared to listen. He let his fingers brush lightly along the walls as he walked, feeling their strange, smooth coolness beneath his gloved hand. There were faint patterns beneath the surface, lines that seemed to shift subtly, curling and looping in quiet elegance, like ancient symbols worn soft by the passing of unseen centuries. The gentle sound of his footsteps echoed softly, a steady, calming rhythm that kept his mind anchored amid the strange quiet. Etienne breathed slowly, his heart beating a calm, measured pace. Whatever this place was, whatever secret it held, it seemed not hostile, but waiting, watching. Minutes passed, or perhaps they were longer. Time seemed to slip quietly away in this place, like a gentle mist dissolving beneath the morning sun. The passage slowly widened, opening into a chamber of quiet beauty. The ceiling soared in a smooth arch above him, its surface alive with faint, intricate carvings that shimmered softly in the golden lantern light. The walls curved around a shallow pool of water at the chamber's centre, its surface glassy and still, a perfect mirror reflecting the soft glow of the lantern and the delicate carvings above. Etienne stepped lightly toward the water's edge, kneeling gently as he gazed into its depths. The pool was no deeper than a basin, yet its surface seemed to hold an impossible clarity. Within, he could see his own reflection, soft, shadowed, almost dreamlike, and beyond it, the faintest suggestion of movement. Shapes shifted beneath the glassy surface, not the bones or stones he might have expected, but soft, fluid ripples of light and shadow, swirling in patterns that danced with a slow, mesmerizing grace. They moved as though part of a silent, unseen current, drifting lazily in an endless, gentle waltz. Etienne found himself leaning closer, drawn by the soft, hypnotic beauty of the pool. The world beyond the chamber faded softly, leaving only the hush of his breath and the silent, swirling dance beneath the water's surface. And then, so softly it might have been imagined, a voice, not loud, not clear, but a faint, almost melodic murmur, as though someone spoke just beneath the water, their words curling in the spaces between sound and silence. Etienne's heart stirred, yet no fear touched him. He knelt quietly, listening, allowing the soft murmur to wrap around him like a veil of gentle mist. The words were not in any language he knew, yet their cadence felt soothing, familiar, in a way that stirred the quiet corners of his mind. A memory surfaced, one he had not known he possessed. A night in his childhood, sitting beside his grandfather's hearth, listening to stories of the ancient city beneath the city, of secret chambers and silent guardians who watched over forgotten places. The words were vague in his memory, softened by time and sleep, but the feeling was the same. As if on cue, the soft murmur faded, replaced once more by the silent embrace of the chamber. Etienne sat quietly, his reflection shimmering softly upon the water's surface. He did not know how long he remained there, wrapped in the quiet calm. It might have been minutes, it might have been hours. But at last a soft pulse beneath his hand drew his attention, the map in his pocket warm against his chest as though stirred by a silent signal. He rose slowly, drawing the parchment forth. Unfolding it with care, he held it near the lantern's soft glow. The map had changed. Where once there had been only lines and symbols, now faint, delicate letters traced themselves along the edge of the chamber's outline, a quiet, flowing script that seemed to bloom gently from the aged paper. Beyond the mirror, where shadows sleep. Etienne read the words aloud, his voice a soft murmur that barely disturbed the air. The moment the final syllable left his lips, a quiet ripple stirred across the pool's surface, gentle, smooth, like the sigh of a dreamer in peaceful slumber. He stepped back, heart steady, watching as the ripple grew, spiraling outward in soft, lazy circles. The water shifted gently, parting at its center, revealing beneath the mirrored surface a staircase, a spiral of pale stone descending into a soft, golden haze. No sound accompanied its appearance, no grand spectacle. Only the silent, gentle invitation of a path revealed. Etienne gazed upon the opening with a quiet, almost reverent wonder. He felt no fear. Only the soft, unshakable sense that he had reached the edge of something rare and precious, a secret meant to be uncovered by those who sought without haste, without greed, but with quiet heart and open mind. He reached for his lantern, its glow warm and steady in his hand. With a soft breath, he stepped forward once more, his reflection shimmering gently in the parting waters. The first stair met his foot with a soft, familiar weight, and as he began his slow, measured descent into the heart of the earth, the chamber above watched in perfect, silent calm, the ancient stones bearing silent witness to the quiet unfolding of a story that had waited patiently for a seeker to listen. The staircase curved gently downward, a soft spiral of pale stone that seemed untouched by the weight of centuries. Etienne's lantern cast a warm, steady glow upon the steps, each one smooth and worn as if shaped by the passage of countless unseen travelers. Yet no sign of disturbance marked the stone, no footprints, no dust, no trace of life or memory beyond his own quiet presence. The air grew softer as he descended, wrapping around him like a gentle, cool shroud. The faint scent of damp earth lingered, mingling with a delicate trace of something floral, faint as the memory of a spring morning long past. The walls beside him were smooth and pale, curving in a slow embrace that seemed at once ancient and strangely alive, as though the very stone exhaled with each step he took. Etienne moved with patient care, his footsteps soft upon the spiral stair. The descent was not steep, but steady, a quiet, graceful slope that wound deeper into the hush of the earth. Time seemed to dissolve around him, stretched thin and weightless, as if the world above had become little more than a distant memory. After a while, though whether it was minutes or hours he could not tell, the staircase opened gently into a new passage. The ceiling lifted, arching in a smooth, elegant curve overhead. The walls shimmered faintly, kissed by the soft light of his lantern, revealing delicate patterns etched into the stone. They were not words nor symbols, but flowing lines that curled and looped like vines, forming shapes just beyond the grasp of understanding. He reached out, fingertips brushing lightly against the carvings. They were warm beneath his touch, pulsing softly with a faint living hum that danced along his skin. He did not recoil. The sensation was neither cold nor alarming. It was soft, gentle, like the quiet touch of a hand in the dark. Etienne walked on, his heart steady, wrapped in a strange, peaceful wonder. The passage wound forward with slow, graceful turns, leading him ever deeper into the silent heart of the earth. The only sounds were the faint whisper of his breath and the soft, steady fall of his footsteps. And then he saw it. Ahead, the corridor opened into a wide chamber, a vast, silent hall whose walls rose high into shadow, their surfaces alive with the same intricate carvings. At its center stood a single pillar, tall and slender, crowned with a shallow basin of gleaming stone. The basin shimmered softly, filled with a liquid that caught the lantern's glow and held it in a gentle golden gleam. Etienne approached slowly, drawn by a quiet, steady pull in his chest. The chamber was utterly silent, the air still as a breath held in reverence. He reached the pillar and gazed into the basin. The liquid within was clear as glass, its surface perfectly still. Yet beneath it, faint shapes stirred, slow curling patterns of light and shadow that moved in a gentle, rhythmic dance. They seemed to shift in harmony with the soft beat of his heart, as though drawn to the quiet rhythm of his presence. For a long moment he simply watched, his mind wrapped in a calm, unspoken awe. There was no fear, no urgency, only a deep, abiding sense of wonder, the quiet joy of a seeker standing at the threshold of something ancient and unseen. As his eyes lingered on the shifting patterns, he noticed something, a faint reflection within the liquid's depths. It was not his own, though it moved with the same soft rhythm. A figure, slender and still, standing quietly upon the far side of the chamber. Etienne's heart gave a slow, soft beat. He lifted his gaze, and there she stood. A woman, cloaked in a simple robe of pale, flowing fabric that shimmered softly in the lantern's gentle light. Her face was calm, serene. A quiet grace settled upon her features. Her eyes, dark as midnight, gazed at him with a softness that held neither fear nor threat, but a quiet, steady knowing. She stood as though she had always been there, waiting in the silent hush of the chamber. Etienne felt no fear, only a strange, quiet understanding, an acceptance as soft and natural as a dream unfolding in the hush of the night. The woman inclined her head slightly, a gesture of calm acknowledgement, her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, gentle and serene. Without a word, she lifted her hand and pointed softly toward the basin. Etienne followed her gesture, gazing once more into the shimmering depths. The patterns beneath the surface shifted, curling into soft, fluid forms, lines that wove themselves into the gentle suggestion of a map. He leaned closer, heart steady, eyes tracing the delicate lines. They formed a passage, a path unseen, one that curved away from this chamber, winding softly through the silent depths. The woman's voice came at last, a soft melodic whisper that stirred the air like the sigh of a sleeping world. Follow with quiet heart. The words wrapped gently around him, soft as a lullaby, carrying neither command nor plea, only a quiet, peaceful invitation. Etienne lifted his gaze once more, meeting her calm, unwavering eyes. And in that silent exchange, something passed between them, a soft, unspoken understanding that settled into the hush like a gentle breath. He gave a slow, silent nod. The woman lowered her hand, her serene gaze holding his for a moment longer. Then, as softly as a dream fading into dawn, she stepped back, her form dissolving into the soft embrace of the chamber's shadows, leaving only the faintest trace of her presence in the hush. Etienne stood quietly, his heart wrapped in a calm, gentle wonder. The path was clear. The invitation had been made. With a soft breath, he turned toward the silent corridor that opened beyond the pillar, a passage marked not by stone or sign, but by the quiet memory of her gaze and the soft, lingering hum of the unseen. And with steady footsteps and a heart open to the silent mysteries of the earth, he stepped forward once more, the soft glow of his lantern a quiet star amid the gentle, waiting dark. The passage beyond the chamber stretched out in a soft, gradual curve, its walls smooth and faintly glistening beneath the tender light of Etienne's lantern. There was no harshness here, no jagged stone or ancient rubble. The very air seemed woven from threads of silence and shadow, wrapping softly around him as he moved. The soft sound of his footsteps echoed lightly, a calm, steady rhythm that seemed to harmonize with the quiet pulse of the world beneath Paris. The walls bore no markings now, no carvings or patterns, only the gentle, seamless flow of pale stone, smooth as water frozen in an eternal ripple. He walked with a heart both curious and calm, feeling the soft hush of the unseen pressing gently around him. Though alone, he did not feel abandoned. The memory of the woman's serene eyes lingered in his mind, a silent companion upon his quiet path. As he moved deeper, the passage subtly changed. The air grew warmer, tinged faintly with the scent of soft earth and something sweeter, like a distant breath of blooming flowers carried on a hidden breeze. The lantern's glow reached farther, casting delicate halos upon the gently curving walls. And then ahead, the passage widened, unfolding into a vast vaulted chamber unlike any he had seen before. The ceiling soared high above, lost in soft golden shadow. The walls curved in gentle arcs, their surfaces smooth and gleaming faintly like polished marble. At the chamber's centre rose a low, circular platform of pale stone, its edges traced with delicate grooves that formed flowing, interwoven patterns, an intricate dance of lines that seemed to pulse softly in the lantern's glow. Upon the platform stood 3 slender columns, arranged in a perfect triangle. Each column supported a shallow basin, similar to the one Etienne had seen before. But these basins held not water, nor any liquid, but soft, shimmering crystals, pale, translucent stones that glowed faintly with an inner light, as though holding within them the soft hush of a sleeping star. Etienne approached with slow, reverent steps. The air in the chamber was warm and still, carrying with it a faint hum, a gentle vibration that seemed to rise softly from the very stones beneath his feet. He reached the edge of the platform and gazed upon the first basin. The crystals within glowed softly, their surfaces catching the lantern's light and refracting it into delicate prismatic rays that danced gently across the chamber walls. He leaned closer, watching as the light shifted and swirled. And within the soft play of colour and shadow, images began to form. Faint at first, then growing clearer with each slow heartbeat. Scenes unfolded before his eyes, visions not of his own memory, but of a world that seemed woven from dreams and whispered stories. He saw a city beneath the earth, its halls lit by soft golden light, its streets winding in gentle spirals that stretched into the quiet dark. Figures moved within it, tall, serene forms draped in flowing garments, their faces calm, their eyes soft with a quiet knowing. They moved with grace, speaking not in words but in gentle gestures and soft, musical tones that seemed to weave the very air into silent song. They tended to the stones, to the waters, to the soft living pulse of the earth itself, a people in harmony with the quiet world beneath the world. Etienne watched, his heart wrapped in silent awe. The vision shifted, flowing softly into another scene, this one darker, quieter. The city now lay silent, its golden lights dimmed, its halls empty save for the soft hum of the earth's eternal song. The figures had faded, their presence lingering only in the silent stone and the soft glowing crystals left in quiet watch. And then a single figure remained. A woman, her form draped in pale robes, her eyes deep and serene. She stood alone within the quiet halls, a soft smile upon her lips, her hands resting gently upon the basin of shimmering crystal. Etienne recognized her, the same calm gaze, the same soft presence that had met him in the chamber before. The vision faded gently, dissolving into soft light as the basin's glow dimmed once more. Etienne stepped back slowly, his heart steady, wrapped in a calm, quiet understanding. He moved to the second basin. The crystals within shimmered softly, their light cool and serene. As he gazed upon them, a soft hum rose in the air, a gentle melodic vibration that wrapped around him like a quiet song. The vision unfolded slowly, a map, not of stone or paper, but of light and shadow, traced in soft, flowing lines that spiraled outward from the basin's heart. The paths wove and curved, marking the gentle contours of hidden passages, secret chambers and silent halls long forgotten by the world above. The lines pulsed softly, a living map that seemed to breathe with a quiet, unseen heart. Etienne watched, his eyes tracing the gentle curves, The path he had taken, the chambers he had seen, and beyond them a single line marked in soft, glowing gold, a path yet to be walked. The vision dimmed, and the basin's soft glow faded into the quiet. Etienne felt no rush, no urgency, only the calm, patient pull of a journey unfolding at its own quiet pace. He moved to the third basin. The crystals within glowed with a soft, warm light, a golden hue that felt gentle, like the touch of a morning sun upon sleeping earth. As he gazed upon them, the air around him softened, wrapping in a hush so deep it seemed to still even his own heartbeat. This vision came not in images, but in a feeling, a deep, gentle calm that settled softly into his heart. It was a quiet knowing, a silent understanding that spoke of trust, of patience, of the soft power of quiet hearts listening to the silent song of the world beneath. The glow of the basin faded softly, its light dissolving into the gentle hush of the chamber. Etienne stood in quiet reflection, his heart wrapped in the soft calm of the silent place. The path awaited, not as a challenge nor as a trial, but as a quiet unfolding of a story waiting to be heard by those who walked gently, who listened without haste, who moved with open heart beneath the silent, watching earth. With a soft, steady breath, Etienne turned toward the passage beyond the chamber. The golden path called, not with words, nor with light, but with a soft, unseen whisper that stirred gently in the quiet spaces between each heartbeat. And with slow, gentle steps, he moved forward once more into the waiting dark, the soft glow of his lantern a calm, steady star amid the silent song of the catacombs below Paris. The passage that unfolded before Etienne was unlike any he had walked thus far. It stretched forward in a long, graceful curve, its walls shimmering faintly beneath the soft light of his lantern. The air here held a new quality, a gentle warmth that wrapped around him like the hush of a summer evening. There was a faint scent carried on the unseen currents, delicate and elusive, like the memory of a distant garden hidden in twilight. His footsteps whispered softly upon the smooth stone floor, each echo a gentle companion to his quiet journey. The walls no longer bore carvings nor patterns, yet they seemed alive with a silent awareness, as though the passage itself watched with a patient, unseen gaze. Etienne moved with slow, measured steps, his heart steady beneath the calm hush of the world below. The lantern's glow revealed subtle changes in the corridor's form, gentle undulations in the walls, soft curves in the ceiling, as though the stone had been shaped not by hand, but by a quiet, flowing force. He let his fingers brush lightly against the smooth surface as he walked, feeling a soft hum that lingered beneath his touch, like the faintest breath of a sleeping world. Time slipped gently away, unnoticed in the quiet calm. The passage seemed endless, yet never tiresome, its soft embrace a soothing rhythm that eased his mind and wrapped his thoughts in a peaceful, drifting reverie. The silence was not empty, but full, a rich, living hush that held the quiet music of unseen things moving softly in the depths. At length the corridor began to widen, opening into a space that felt less like a chamber and more like a natural hollow within the earth itself. The walls curved away in gentle arcs, rising into a soft, vaulted dome overhead. The floor sloped downward in a shallow bowl, its surface smooth and glistening faintly in the lantern's light. And at the center of this hollow space stood a single stone monolith. It rose from the earth like a silent sentinel, tall, slender, its surface smooth and pale as moonlight upon still water. Around its base coiled delicate vines, their leaves soft and translucent, glowing faintly with a silvery hue. Tiny blossoms opened along their length, petals as thin as mist, shimmering softly in the gentle light. Etienne approached with slow, quiet steps. The air grew warmer as he neared, carrying a faint, sweet fragrance that stirred soft memories within him, of old gardens bathed in evening light, of whispered stories shared beneath the hush of ancient trees. The monolith stood in perfect stillness, its surface alive with faint, swirling patterns that seemed to shift softly beneath his gaze. They moved not as carvings, but as living threads of light woven gently into the stone's heart. He reached out, his hands steady, and let his fingers brush lightly against its surface. The moment his skin touched the stone, a soft vibration hummed beneath his fingertips, a gentle, rhythmic pulse that echoed the quiet beat of his heart. And then from deep within the monolith, a soft golden light began to glow. It started as a faint shimmer, a delicate bloom of warmth that spread slowly outward, bathing the chamber in a soft golden hue. The vines at the monolith's base stirred gently, their blossoms swaying in a silent, unseen breeze. The air grew rich with the scent of blooming flowers, soft and sweet, wrapping around him like a gentle embrace. A low, melodic hum filled the space, a sound not of voice nor instrument, but a quiet song that seemed to rise from the very stones beneath his feet. It flowed around him, a soft, wordless melody that soothed and stilled the heart, easing every breath into a slow, peaceful rhythm. Etienne closed his eyes, letting the soft song wash over him. The hum resonated deep within, a quiet echo of something ancient and beautiful, a memory of a world where every stone, every whisper of air, every silent gaze held meaning beyond words. When he opened his eyes, the patterns upon the monolith had changed. They now formed soft, flowing lines that traced a gentle path, a curve, a spiral, a point of light, a symbol that spoke of a journey yet unfinished, a path still waiting to be walked. He watched in silent awe as the golden light traced the symbol upon the stone's heart, then faded gently, leaving behind a soft, lingering warmth in the air. The song quieted, its final note settling into the hush like the last breath of a lullaby. Etienne stepped back, his heart calm, his mind wrapped in a deep, abiding peace. The monolith stood silent once more, its presence a soft guardian within the hush of the hidden hollow. He turned slowly, gazing back toward the passage that stretched beyond, a quiet path marked not by sign nor stone, but by the soft, unseen song of the earth beneath his feet. With a steady breath he moved forward once more, the soft glow of his lantern casting gentle halos upon the silent stone. The air wrapped around him like a soft cloak, the memory of the monolith's song lingering in the quiet spaces between each step. And as he walked, the hush of the world below seemed to deepen, folding softly around him, a silent promise of mysteries yet to be unveiled, of gentle wonders waiting patiently within the silent heart of the catacombs beneath Paris. The corridor that unfolded before Etienne grew narrower, its walls drawing closer in a slow, graceful curve. The lantern's soft glow danced upon the stone, tracing gentle shadows along the smooth, unbroken surfaces. There was a softness in the air, a quiet warmth that seemed to carry with it the hush of unseen voices, whispering in a language beyond words. Etienne walked with patient steps, his senses wrapped in the tranquil calm of the subterranean world. His heartbeat moved in slow accord with the silent rhythm of the catacombs, as though some quiet, unseen hand guided his pace. The ground beneath his feet was smooth, polished by time, or perhaps by the countless silent passings of those who had come before. The passageway began to descend again, a gentle slope that seemed to guide him deeper into the heart of the earth. The air grew cooler, touched with a faint trace of mineral and stone, carrying the scent of places long sealed from the world above. There was a subtle shift in the light, an almost imperceptible softening of shadows, as though the walls themselves glowed faintly in quiet response to his presence. As he moved further, a soft sound reached his ears, a distant melodic murmur, faint as the sigh of wind through hollow stone. It was neither voice nor song, but a soft resonance that seemed to rise from the very walls, wrapping gently around him. The sound pulsed softly, a rhythmic thrum that echoed the calm, steady beat of his heart. At length, the corridor opened into a narrow vestibule, its ceiling low, its walls gently curved inward. At the far end stood a doorway, tall, slender, framed by two columns carved from the same pale stone that lined the silent corridors. The doorway was open, its threshold marked by a simple, flowing symbol etched into the stone floor, a spiral, its curves soft and endless, drawing the eye gently inward. Etienne approached with slow steps, his heart wrapped in quiet curiosity. The air beyond the doorway shimmered softly, touched by a faint, golden glow. He paused at the threshold, gazing into the space beyond. It was a chamber unlike any he had yet seen. Circular in shape, the room was bathed in a soft, diffused light that seemed to rise from the walls themselves, casting no shadow. The ceiling arched high overhead, its surface smooth and unmarred, holding the faintest glimmer of soft, flowing patterns that shimmered like quiet waves upon a still sea. At the center of the chamber stood a low pedestal, its surface wide and flat, carved from a single piece of pale, luminous stone. Resting upon it was a single object, a small circular disc, no larger than the span of Etienne's hand. The disc shimmered faintly, its surface alive with gentle swirls of light that moved in slow, rhythmic patterns. It seemed almost liquid in form, though it held its shape with a delicate firmness, as if woven from threads of light and shadow. Etienne stepped softly into the chamber, his footsteps silent upon the smooth floor. The air was warm, touched with the faint, sweet scent of unseen blossoms, mingled with the soft, mineral hush of ancient stone. He approached the pedestal slowly, his heart steady, his mind wrapped in a calm, patient wonder. The disc pulsed softly as he neared, its patterns shifting in a slow, graceful dance. Without thinking, guided by a quiet instinct he could not name, Etienne reached out and let his fingers brush lightly against the disc's surface. The moment his skin met the shimmering light, a soft pulse rippled outward, a wave of warmth that flowed gently through his hand into his arm and settled quietly in his heart. The chamber seemed to breathe around him, the soft light deepening in a gentle golden glow. And then, softly, a vision unfolded. It was not a dream, nor a memory, but a quiet living tapestry that wove itself around him, a silent story whispered in images and feelings, as soft and sure as the hush of falling rain. He saw the city of Paris as it had been long before his time, its streets winding beneath ancient towers, its stones worn by countless footsteps. Beneath it, hidden from the eyes of the world above, lay a labyrinth of chambers and corridors, crafted not by the hands of kings or masons, but by a people long forgotten. They were the silent keepers of the earth's hidden heart, guardians of a quiet wisdom that spoke not in words but in the soft, unseen language of stone and shadow. They moved through the catacombs with gentle purpose, their lives woven into the living memory of the earth itself. And then in time they faded, passing beyond the sight of the world, leaving behind only soft echoes and silent guardians to tend the quiet places they had known. The vision softened, shifting into a soft, golden glow. The story held no sadness, no loss, only a quiet, enduring peace like the soft hush of a song that lingers long after its final note has faded. As the vision dissolved into the hush, Etienne drew a slow, steady breath. The warmth of the disc lingered upon his hand, a soft, gentle pulse that echoed within him. He lifted the disc carefully, cradling it in his hands. It felt weightless, as though woven from air and light, yet its presence held a quiet strength, a silent, living memory wrapped in the soft embrace of the earth's endless heart. Etienne stood in the calm hush of the chamber, the disc warm against his palms, the soft light of the silent catacombs wrapping gently around him. The path lay before him still, a quiet journey unfolding with each soft step, each silent breath. With a heart open to the unseen and a spirit wrapped in the hush of ancient memory, he turned once more toward the passage that stretched beyond, the soft glow of his lantern casting gentle halos upon the silent, waiting dark. And in that stillness, wrapped in the soft hum of the hidden world, Etienne moved forward, into the quiet heart of the mystery that whispered softly beneath the streets of Paris. The chamber's gentle light faded slowly behind Etienne as he stepped once more into the soft embrace of the winding corridor. The disc, warm and silent in his hands, seemed to hum softly against his palms, a quiet, living heartbeat that moved in slow accord with his own. The air wrapped around him, rich with the scent of earth and faint traces of unseen blossoms, carrying a hush that felt deeper with each step he took. He walked with a measured pace, the lantern casting soft halos upon the pale walls. The passage narrowed and curved gently, folding inward like a path drawn with quiet, patient hands. The stone underfoot bore no marks of passage, no scratches, no worn tracks, only the smooth, silent perfection of a place untouched by hurried steps. Etienne glanced down at the disc cradled in his hands. Its surface shimmered softly, alive with faint, swirling patterns of light and shadow. The lines moved in slow, graceful loops, shifting and curling like threads woven into a living tapestry. He could feel its quiet hum pressing gently into his skin, not loud, not urgent, but steady and calm, as though sharing with him the soft, unseen song of the earth itself. Time seemed to stretch, soft and weightless, as he walked. The hush of the catacombs wrapped around him like a slow-moving current, carrying him deeper into the silent heart of the unseen. He felt no fear, no sense of danger, only a quiet awareness that he had stepped beyond the edge of the known world, into a space where time and memory drifted together like silent shadows. The corridor opened at last into a long, narrow hall. The walls here were darker, touched with faint, flowing veins of deep golden stone that shimmered softly beneath the lantern's glow. The ceiling arched gently overhead, its surface smooth and seamless, alive with delicate, shifting patterns that seemed to move with the soft rhythm of the earth's silent breath. At the far end of the hall stood a single door. It was simple in form, tall, slender, carved from a dark, polished stone that gleamed faintly in the gentle light. The surface bore no lock, no handle. Only a single symbol rested at its center, a spiral within a circle etched so finely that it seemed almost part of the stone's living heart. Etienne approached with slow, reverent steps. The disc in his hands pulsed softly, its light deepening into a gentle golden hue. He stood before the door, the hush of the catacombs settling around him like a soft veil. For a moment he simply breathed, letting the quiet fill him, feeling the soft rhythmic hum of the disc in his hands. And then, guided by an instinct as natural as breath itself, he lifted the disc and pressed it gently against the door's silent heart. The stone grew warm beneath his touch. A soft light flared, pulsing outward in slow, gentle waves. The spiral at the door's center shimmered softly, its lines glowing with a soft golden radiance. And then, with a grace as silent as falling snow, the door opened. It did not swing nor slide, but simply folded away, its form dissolving softly into the air, leaving behind a quiet, open passage that led into a space beyond shadow and light. Etienne stepped forward, the disc held gently in his hands. The room beyond was vast, a circular chamber of soft, endless hush. Its walls curved gently upward, rising into a dome that seemed woven from shadow and soft golden light. The air shimmered faintly, alive with the same quiet pulse that moved within the disc he held. At the chamber's center stood a low platform, upon which rested a single object, a second disc, larger than the one Etienne carried, its surface alive with soft, flowing light that pulsed like the silent rhythm of a sleeping world. He moved toward it, his heart calm, his breath soft and steady. The air around him was warm, rich with the scent of old earth and the faintest trace of distant flowers. The soft hum of the chamber wrapped around him like a quiet song, easing every thought into a slow, peaceful drift. As he neared, he saw that the second disc bore the same swirling patterns as the one in his hands, lines that flowed and curved, looping in gentle, endless spirals. But within its heart, a single pulsing light shone, a soft golden star that seemed to breathe with the silent song of the catacombs. Without haste, without thought, Etienne reached out and gently placed the disc he carried into a shallow hollow beside the larger one. The moment they touched, a soft pulse flowed through the chamber, a wave of gentle light that moved like a sigh through the stone, wrapping the space in a warm, silent embrace. And then the vision came, not in images nor in sound, but in feeling. A deep, abiding peace, a quiet knowing that stretched beyond time and memory. The silent understanding of a world that moved not with noise or haste, but with the soft, unseen rhythms of patience, of balance, of quiet hearts listening to the song of the earth beneath their feet. Etienne stood within the hush, his heart open, his spirit wrapped in the silent embrace of the unseen. The catacombs held no darkness here, no fear, only the soft, eternal calm of a world that waited, quietly, for those who walked with gentle steps and open hearts. And in that hush, with the soft golden light pulsing softly around him, he felt it, the quiet, living memory of a world forgotten by time, waiting only for a quiet heart to listen. He closed his eyes, breathing in the soft, silent song, and with each breath he felt himself become part of the silent story unfolding beneath the streets of Paris, a story woven not in words, but in the soft, endless hush of the earth's gentle heart. Etienne remained still, wrapped in the soft glow of the chamber's silent heart. The two discs, one cradled within the other, pulsed gently with a golden warmth, casting delicate patterns upon the smooth stone walls. The light moved in slow, graceful waves, as if echoing the quiet rhythm of a hidden world breathing softly beneath the weight of centuries. He stood before the low platform, his hands resting lightly at his sides, and felt the hush settle around him like a soft, invisible cloak. The chamber was alive, not with voices nor sound, but with a presence, calm and deep, a patient awareness woven into every stone. The vision that had stirred within him lingered, not fading, but resting gently at the edge of his mind. A living memory that whispered not with words but with soft feelings, gentle impressions that flowed like ripples across still water. Etienne let his breath move in slow accord with the chamber's quiet pulse. He felt no need to speak, no urge to act. Only a calm, enduring stillness wrapped around him, as if the very air invited him to listen to the silent unfolding of something far older than the city above. At length, a soft shift stirred the air. The light upon the platform deepened, flowing outward in slow spiraling waves that moved across the chamber floor like the soft unfolding of golden petals. The stone beneath his feet warmed slightly, alive with a gentle hum that touched his skin like the faintest breath of morning wind. And then, before him, a shape began to take form. It rose from the platform with a grace so soft it seemed woven from the hush itself, a figure tall and slender, robed in pale, flowing garments that shimmered with a quiet, living light. Her face was serene, her features soft with a calm beyond understanding. Her dark eyes held the same quiet depth Etienne had glimpsed in the woman who had met him in the chamber before. But this time there was no distance, no parting glance. The figure stood before him in perfect stillness, her gaze steady and calm, as though waiting not to speak, but simply to be present in the hush they now shared. Etienne inclined his head slightly, a gesture of silent acknowledgement. The woman returned the gesture, her faint smile soft and knowing. For a long moment, they stood together in the silent chamber, two souls bound by the quiet thread of a story neither had spoken aloud. The air between them shimmered softly, alive with the gentle hum of unseen currents flowing like soft whispers beneath the world. And then, with a grace so natural it seemed like the slow unfolding of dawn, the woman lifted her hand. Her slender fingers reached toward the larger disc upon the platform, touching its soft, glowing surface with a lightness as soft as falling mist. The disc stirred beneath her touch, its light blooming gently outward. Patterns of soft gold wove themselves into intricate spirals, tracing along the chamber floor, curling up the walls in graceful arcs that moved with the slow rhythm of a heart at rest. Etienne watched, his heart steady, his spirit wrapped in the soft wonder of the silent unfolding. The patterns danced around him, delicate threads of light that drifted gently in the air, weaving a tapestry of soft, endless motion. The woman's voice came at last, a whisper so soft it seemed to rise not from her lips, but from the very air itself. Keeper of quiet paths. The words moved through him, a soft pulse of understanding that settled gently within his heart. She turned her gaze upon him, her dark eyes holding the calm depth of silent waters. You have walked with patience, listened with a quiet heart. You are known here. The words did not startle, did not command. They wrapped around him like the soft embrace of a familiar melody, one he had always known, though he had never heard it before. Etienne gave a slight nod, his breath soft, his heart calm. He felt no need to speak. The hush between them was full, rich with meanings that needed no voice. The woman's hand moved slowly, tracing a gentle arc in the air. The patterns of light followed her gesture, curling softly toward him, wrapping around his hands in a delicate weave of soft golden threads. The disc he had carried stirred gently within the quiet embrace of light, lifting softly from the platform as if cradled by unseen hands. It hovered before him, its soft glow deepening into a warm golden heart that pulsed gently with the rhythm of the silent chamber. The woman's whisper touched the air once more. The path you seek is not marked by steps nor walls. It is traced within the hush, held by those who walk in quiet accord with the unseen. Etienne reached out slowly, his fingers brushing once more against the soft, glowing disc. It settled gently into his hands, its warmth flowing softly into his skin, a living thread connecting him to the silent heart of the world beneath. The woman inclined her head again, her soft smile lingering like the last note of a fading song. Walk gently, Keeper, the story unfolds with you. And then, as softly as a breath, she faded, her form dissolving into the soft golden light that drifted gently through the chamber. The patterns of light that had woven themselves around him lingered for a moment longer, then settled softly into the silent stone, their gentle glow dimming into a quiet hush. Etienne stood alone in the vast silent chamber, the disc warm in his hands, the hush of the catacombs wrapping around him like a soft, unseen cloak. He felt no fear, no urgency. Only the quiet certainty that the journey had shifted, that the path now stretched not just before him, but within him, woven into the silent heart that had listened and followed without haste. With a slow, steady breath, he turned toward the silent passage that opened beyond the chamber, a path waiting with patient calm, marked not by signs or symbols, but by the soft, unseen thread of a story unfolding in perfect silence. And with the quiet strength of one who walks with an open heart, Etienne stepped forward once more, the soft glow of the disc a silent star in the gentle, waiting dark. The passageway narrowed so much that Etienne had to turn his shoulders slightly to pass. The stones pressed coolly against his coat as his gloved fingers trailed along the ancient limestone. His lantern, once bright, now burned low, a soft, golden halo flickering against the damp walls. The weight of the subterranean world pressed around him, thick as a silent sea. Etienne moved forward with cautious steps, each footfall echoed with a peculiar softness, swallowed almost instantly by the oppressive stillness. The air felt heavier here, tinged with a faint metallic taste that clung to his tongue. For a brief moment he wondered if he had strayed into one of the lesser-known branches, those whispered corridors the old cataphiles spoke of, leading to places unmarked on any chart. Ahead, the tunnel seemed to vanish into a deep shadow, the archway before him worn and crumbling with the erosion of centuries. He paused, holding his lantern high. Shapes seemed to swim beyond the reach of the light, soft curves and contours, not of stone, but of something else entirely. He stepped through the archway. The chamber opened before him in a silent yawn of darkness. Its walls, ceiling and floor merged in soft, natural curves, almost as if the stone itself had melted and cooled into this hidden hollow. But it was what adorned the walls that made Etienne's breath catch in his throat. Bones. Arranged with chilling precision, the skeletal remains of countless souls formed patterns upon the stone. Rows upon rows of femurs, stacked like bricks with skulls peering blankly between them at regular intervals. But unlike the catacombs above, those ossuaries arranged with a certain reverence, this display bore an unsettling artistry. The bones arched and spiraled in looping, unnatural designs, forming cryptic symbols that seemed to vibrate faintly at the edge of perception. In the chamber's heart stood a stone pedestal, waist-high, its surface flat and bare save for a single slender object, a silver key, tarnished and blackened with age. Etienne swallowed hard. The key glimmered faintly in the lantern's uncertain light, as though drawing breath from the shadows. He stepped forward, each movement slow and deliberate, his heart thudding softly against his ribs. He could feel it then, a presence. Not a sound, nor a vision, but a palpable awareness, ancient and indifferent, stirring faintly within the bones around him. He hesitated at the edge of the pedestal, the key gleaming just inches from his gloved hand. The chamber watched him. Memories of old legends flickered in his mind, stories whispered in candlelit rooms, of secret societies and forgotten rites beneath Paris's skin, of cryptic keys left as tokens by the architects, a clandestine brotherhood said to guard passages that even the city's oldest maps dared not mark. His fingers hovered over the key. He could leave, turn back now, retrace his steps to the known tunnels and climb towards the living city. But a part of him, a deeper, quieter voice, urged him forward. There were mysteries only revealed to those who dared touch them. With a slow breath, Etienne closed his hand around the key. The moment his fingers closed upon the cold metal, a soft, shuddering sigh swept through the chamber. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, the bone patterns shimmering with an almost imperceptible ripple, as though exhaling a breath long held in silent vigil. Etienne drew the key towards him. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then, from beyond the chamber's farthest wall, a low, sonorous chime echoed, a single bell-like tone that resonated not in the ears, but within the chest, vibrating softly beneath his skin. The sound carried a weight of ancient purpose, its echo lingering long after the initial note faded into silence. And with it, the far wall trembled. Etienne stood frozen as a thin fissure snaked slowly across the stone, delicate as a hairline crack upon porcelain. The wall shifted, stone grating softly upon stone, revealing a slender vertical slit, a hidden door, inching open with agonizing slowness. Beyond the narrowing gap stretched a corridor unlike any he had seen, not rough-hewn like the catacombs, nor lined with bones. This passage was smooth, its walls of dark, polished stone that gleamed faintly in the lantern's glow. Strange symbols etched faintly upon its surface seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence, their shapes unfamiliar, flowing with a script that twisted gently even as he tried to comprehend it. A quiet warmth seeped from the open passage, a faint breath of air that stirred the dampness around him. It carried no foul scent of decay, only a subtle fragrance, sweet and metallic, like the ghost of long-forgotten incense. Etienne felt his heart quicken. The door continued its slow unveiling, wide enough now for a man to pass. The silence beyond was total, expectant, pressing gently upon his senses. He hesitated. There were lines one did not cross, thresholds in both stone and spirit. And yet, standing there, Etienne felt drawn, as though an invisible thread tugged softly at his being, urging him forward into the shadowed embrace of the hidden corridor. Slowly, as if moving through a dream, he stepped across the threshold. The passage accepted him with a hushed sigh. The door behind him ceased its motion, settling into place with a soft, echoing click. The light of his lantern reflected off the polished walls, casting soft, golden ripples along the smooth stone. With careful steps, he moved deeper. The symbols that adorned the walls pulsed faintly as he passed, not with light, but with a subtle shifting, as if acknowledging his presence in some silent tongue of stone and shadow. The passage curved gently, descending deeper beneath the earth's skin. Etienne could feel it now, a low hum beneath his feet, a resonance that vibrated softly through the soles of his boots, rising faintly through his body. It was not sound, nor touch, but something between, a silent chord struck upon the fabric of existence itself. Ahead, the corridor widened, and there, waiting in the soft penumbra of the lantern's fading glow, stood a door, tall, arched, and wrought of black iron traced with veins of dull silver. Its surface bore the same flowing script, curling in patterns that seemed to shift softly beneath his gaze. In its center, an ancient keyhole. Etienne held the key in his trembling hand. He stepped forward, heart beating in slow, measured thuds, the world narrowing to the slender key and the waiting lock before him. With a soft breath that trembled faintly upon his lips, Etienne lifted the silver key toward the waiting lock. The ancient iron door loomed silent and unmoving before him, its dark surface gleaming dully in the lantern's fading light. He felt the faintest resistance as the key met the aperture, as though the door itself weighed his intent before accepting his hand. With a slow, deliberate motion, he pressed the key inward. A quiet click sounded, so soft it might have been a whisper, and for a brief, suspended moment, nothing followed. Etienne's breath caught in his throat. The passage behind him remained utterly still, the polished walls watching in silent witness. Then came the sound of unseen mechanism stirring deep within the iron's heart. It began as a faint shudder, a vibration that echoed softly through the key in his hand, travelling up his arm in a slow, rhythmic pulse. Etienne felt it rather than heard it, a muted symphony of ancient gears and silent levers, the delicate song of a lock awakening from centuries of slumber. The door responded. Without haste, without resistance, the heavy iron structure moved inward upon unseen hinges, gliding with a smoothness that defied its massive form. A thin breath of warm air exhaled from the widening gap, carrying with it a scent unlike anything Etienne had ever known, soft, sweet, and tinged with a metallic undertone that stirred forgotten echoes in the deepest chambers of memory. Beyond the threshold stretched a corridor of perfect darkness. It was a void untouched by his lantern's glow, as though the light itself refused to enter, swallowed whole by an abyss that lay beyond comprehension. Etienne stared into it, heart thundering softly in the silence, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing gently yet insistently upon his soul. He stepped forward. The instant his foot crossed the threshold, the darkness retreated, not shattered by light, but parting softly, curling away like mist before a silent wind. The corridor unfolded before him, revealing a passage unlike any he had known or imagined. The floor beneath his boots was not stone, but smooth marble veined with soft streaks of iridescent colour, hues shifting gently like the surface of a calm, moonlit sea. The walls rose in seamless arcs, polished to a mirrored finish that reflected his form in subtle, shifting echoes. as though countless silent watchers accompanied his every step. Soft light bathed the corridor, not from any source he could see, but from the walls themselves, a gentle luminescence that ebbed and flowed like a living heartbeat. Etienne moved forward, his steps slow, reverent. The corridor curved gently, leading him deeper into the unknown. The hum beneath his feet grew stronger, a silent resonance that mingled with the steady pulse of his heart. It was not threatening nor oppressive, but it spoke of age and purpose, of forces far beyond the reach of mortal design. At length the passage opened into a chamber vast and silent as a forgotten cathedral. Etienne stood at its threshold, eyes widening at the vision before him. The chamber stretched into shadowed distance, its ceiling lost in a soft, swirling mist that hovered like a veil of dreams. Slender pillars rose in silent ranks, fashioned from dark stone veined with silver, their surfaces adorned with flowing symbols that shimmered faintly as though alive. At the chamber's heart stood a pool, a perfect circle of still, mirror-like water, its surface unbroken and gleaming like black glass. The pool's edges were marked by thin lines of silver in intricate looping patterns that pulsed faintly in rhythm with the silent hum. Around the pool, 12 figures stood. They were statues, or so they seemed at first, a ring of tall, robed forms carved from a dark, stone-like substance that gleamed with an inner sheen. Each figure bore a distinct face, ancient, solemn, and adorned with symbols that curled gently across their brows and down their veiled forms. Their eyes were closed. Etienne stepped closer, his breath soft in the vast, hushed space. The figures stood motionless, hands folded upon their chests in silent guardianship. They exuded a presence that pressed softly upon his senses, not hostile, nor inviting, but vast, timeless, and impossibly patient. He felt, rather than knew, that he stood in the presence of an ancient vigil, one that had waited through centuries, untouched by the passage of mortal years. The pool called to him. Its surface gleamed with a soft light, shifting gently as though stirred by an unseen breath. Etienne moved forward, drawn by a quiet, wordless pull, until he stood at the very edge of the dark water. He gazed into its depths. At first he saw only his reflection, pale, shadowed, eyes wide beneath the brim of his hat. But as he watched, the image shifted. Beneath the surface, shadows coalesced, swirling gently as though stirred by an unseen hand. Shapes moved within, faint outlines of corridors, chambers, and arches. Faces emerged and dissolved, some familiar, others utterly alien. Scenes of distant ages played out in silent, back-flowing visions. An ancient city rising from mist-shrouded waters, figures in silver robes walking along paths of gleaming fires burning in the depths of shadowed catacombs. And among them always the Watchers, the 12. They stood in every scene, silent and unmoving, eyes always closed. Etienne's heart beat slow and deep within his chest. He reached toward the water, fingers trembling slightly. The surface rippled beneath his hand, soft like silk beneath a gentle touch. A faint warmth radiated from the pool, seeping into his skin, flowing gently along his arm in a slow, pulsing rhythm, and with it a voice. It was not heard, but felt, a soft whisper upon the soul's ear, a wordless song that spoke not in language, but in memory and emotion. It carried with it a quiet certainty, a knowledge that unfolded gently within his heart. The pool was not a mirror, it was a door, and it had been waiting for him, or for another like him, since time beyond reckoning. Etienne's breath came slowly, steady as the silent pulse beneath his hand. The Watchers remained unmoving, their silent vigil unbroken. And in the depths of the water the shadows waited, soft, swirling, patient as the stones that cradled them. With a final quiet breath, Etienne stepped forward. Etienne withdrew his hand from the water with a slowness born not of hesitation, but of reverence. The surface rippled softly, settling once more into a glassy, silent mirror. He remained kneeling at the pool's edge, gazing into the quiet depths that moments before had stirred with visions of forgotten centuries. The warmth still lingered faintly in his palm, a soft echo of that silent touch, a sensation that seemed to hum gently in the hollow of his chest. The chamber watched in its endless stillness. The 12 figures around the pool remained unmoved, their veiled faces bowed in timeless contemplation. The soft glow of the chamber's unseen light reflected faintly upon their forms, casting long, slender shadows that seemed to fold gently into the surrounding mist. Etienne felt a peculiar calm settle upon him, a quiet understanding that he stood in a place beyond the grasp of mortal time, beyond the hurried breath of the world above. Slowly he rose to his feet. The hum beneath the marble floor whispered softly against his boots, a soundless murmur that seemed to welcome his movement with patient acknowledgement. The pool reflected his figure, tall, slender, haloed by the flickering lantern now resting upon the floor. Its soft glow seemed muted here, subdued by the chamber's living light. Etienne turned his gaze toward the watchers. He stepped carefully around the pool, moving slowly as though afraid to disturb the fragile balance of the silent space. His eyes traced the flowing symbols etched upon their robes, lines that curved and spiraled with a grace beyond human hand. Each mark seemed to hum faintly as his eyes passed over them, vibrating softly at the edge of perception. They were not mere carvings. They lived. He felt it with every step, a quiet awareness emanating from each veiled figure, as though their folded hands concealed an endless vigilance. Their presence was neither oppressive nor threatening, but carried a weight, a gravity of purpose that pressed softly upon the air around them. Etienne approached the nearest figure. It stood slightly apart from the others, its tall form cloaked in dark, seamless fabric that shimmered faintly in the chamber's ambient glow. The veil across its face bore intricate symbols, delicate as the veins of a leaf, curling softly around the curve of its brow. Its hands, folded gently upon its chest, cradled a slender object, an ornate rod of dark metal, its surface traced with lines of silver that formed flowing serpentine patterns. He stood before it, heart beating in quiet reverence. A soft wind, cool and scented with something faintly floral, stirred gently against his cheek, a whisper of air that seemed to exhale from the figure itself. It carried with it no voice, no words, only a presence, soft, timeless and aware. Etienne bowed his head, unsure why, yet feeling it was right. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, with a grace as slow and inevitable as the tide, the figure's hands parted. The rod it held shifted, by no visible force of muscle or sinew, but with a silent, fluid motion as though moved by an unseen will. It extended forward, turning gently in the veiled hands until it pointed directly at Etienne. His breath caught. The air around him stirred gently, carrying a low, soft hum that vibrated faintly within his chest. The rod gleamed softly in the chamber's light, its surface shifting with delicate reflections that seemed to ripple like water upon metal. Etienne reached out. His hand moved as if drawn, not by force, but by a quiet compulsion that resonated softly within his heart. His fingers closed gently around the rod, the metal cool and impossibly smooth beneath his touch. The moment he grasped it, a quiet change settled over the chamber. The humming beneath his feet deepened, a slow, resonant chord that echoed softly in the silent air. The watchers remained unmoved, their veiled faces still bowed, but the symbols upon their robes shimmered faintly, glowing with a soft, inner light. Etienne stood motionless, the rod resting gently in his hand. A warmth pulsed softly through the metal, a heartbeat that matched his own, slow and steady, flowing gently along his arm and settling quietly within his chest. It was not a command, nor an invitation, but a joining, an acceptance of something long foreseen, quietly awaited. The chamber's silent song deepened. Etienne turned slowly, the rod held loosely in his hand. The pool's surface remained still, reflecting the watchers, the chamber, and his lone figure among them. The soft mist swirling above the chamber's unseen ceiling folded gently around the slender pillars, casting soft shadows that danced with the silent hum. He moved toward the far end of the chamber. There, beyond the ring of the 12, stood an archway. It was unlike the others he had passed, a slender frame of polished stone, traced with flowing symbols that shimmered softly against the dark marble walls. The archway opened into a narrow corridor, its entrance marked by 2 slender columns carved with twisting, serpentine designs. The path beyond lay shrouded in soft mist. Etienne approached with slow, measured steps, the rod resting lightly in his grasp. The air around him grew warmer, still soft, still gentle, but carrying a faint, humming resonance that stirred softly in the hollow spaces of the chamber. As he reached the threshold, he paused. A quiet certainty settled within him, a deep knowing that this was a path not marked upon any map, not whispered in any tale. It was a way kept in silent watch by those who stood behind him, a passage meant only for those who carried the unseen key. The rod pulsed gently in his hand. He stepped forward. The mist parted softly, folding away before him in delicate tendrils that curled gently along the corridor's polished floor. The walls shimmered faintly in the chamber's soft light, their surfaces alive with shifting patterns that whispered quietly as he passed. The corridor curved gently, descending in a slow, spiraling arc. Etienne felt the quiet presence of the watchers fade behind him, replaced by a deeper stillness, an expectant hush that pressed softly against his skin. The soft hum beneath his feet continued, flowing gently with each step, guiding him deeper into the silent heart of the earth. He did not know how long he walked. Time lost its shape, flowing gently into the soft embrace of the endless corridor. The mist swirled quietly at his heels, the light shifting in soft, silent waves along the polished walls, and all the while the rod in his hand pulsed gently, its silent song unfolding softly within his heart. Until at last, the corridor opened before him, and Etienne stepped into a place where even the silent watchers dared not follow. The chamber into which Etienne stepped was unlike any he had yet encountered beneath the sleeping city. It stretched vast and silent before him, its walls lost to soft veils of mist that hung in gentle folds from an unseen ceiling high above. The air held a quiet warmth, tinged faintly with a sweet metallic scent, a fragrance that stirred dim echoes of half-remembered dreams. The floor beneath his boots was a smooth expanse of polished stone, dark as deep water, veined with slender lines of faintly glowing silver that traced delicate, spiraling patterns across its surface. The lines seemed to move ever so slightly, shifting with a slow grace, like the soft unfurling of ancient vines. In the heart of the chamber stood a single structure, a monolith of pale stone, slender and tall, rising like a silent sentinel from the marble floor. Its surface was smooth and unmarked, save for a single, vertical fissure running its length, a narrow slit that pulsed faintly with a soft, inner glow. Etienne approached with slow, reverent steps. The rod in his hand grew warm, a soft, pulsing heat that thrummed gently against his skin, its quiet song weaving itself through the silent air. With each step, the hum beneath his feet deepened, folding softly into the gentle resonance of the chamber itself. He stopped before the monolith. Its surface shimmered faintly in the soft light, the narrow slit at its center pulsing with a steady rhythm, a heartbeat in perfect harmony with the silent song of the hidden world. Etienne felt the air around him thicken slightly, not with weight or pressure, but with an awareness, an ancient, patient presence that stirred softly at the edges of his perception. He raised the rod. The moment its slender tip neared the monolith, the glow within the fissure brightened, soft at first, then deepening into a gentle radiance that filled the space with a quiet, golden light. The rod in his hand responded, its surface humming softly, the delicate lines of silver upon it flowing with a liquid grace. And then, with a motion as fluid as the falling of a single drop of water, the monolith parted. The two halves of the pale stone slid silently apart, revealing a narrow passageway beyond, a dark corridor lined with walls of smooth, silver-veined stone, their surfaces alive with soft, flowing patterns that shifted gently in the half-light. Etienne stepped forward. The passage welcomed him with a soft sigh, the air warm and faintly scented with that sweet metallic fragrance. The walls shimmered softly as he passed, their living patterns flowing gently around him, folding quietly into the shadows beyond. He moved with a slow, measured grace, the rod resting lightly in his hand, its gentle hum now a familiar presence within him. The corridor led him deeper, downward, spiraling softly like the shell of some great unseen creature. The air grew warmer, the soft hum of the earth folding into a low, resonant chord that echoed faintly in the silent space. At length, the passage opened into a chamber of soft light and silent stone. Etienne paused at its threshold, his breath catching softly in his throat. Before him stretched a hall vast as a cathedral, its walls carved from living rock, veined with lines of soft, golden light that flowed gently along their surfaces like liquid threads. The ceiling arched high above, lost in soft folds of swirling mist that glowed faintly in the ambient light. At the center of the chamber stood a circle of 12 stone thrones, tall, slender, adorned with flowing symbols that shimmered softly in the quiet air. Upon each throne sat a figure, robed and veiled in garments of soft, dark fabric that shimmered faintly with inner light. They were not statues. Etienne felt it at once, the quiet, living presence that flowed from each seated figure, a silent awareness that watched him with eyes unseen. The same quiet gravity he had felt in the Hall of the Watchers now pressed gently upon him, vast and ancient, yet without threat. The 12 remained motionless, their veiled faces bowed slightly, their hands resting upon the arms of their thrones in silent repose. And at the heart of their circle burned a soft, golden flame. It hovered gently above the smooth floor, no more than a slender wisp of fire, flickering softly in a silent breeze that Etienne could not feel. The flame pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, its light flowing gently across the chamber, casting soft shadows upon the veiled forms that surrounded it. Etienne stepped forward. The soft hum within him deepened, folding gently into the quiet song of the chamber. The rod in his hand pulsed softly, its slender form alive with the same golden light that danced within the silent flame. He crossed the threshold into the circle. The seated figures remained unmoving, their silent vigil unbroken. Yet as he passed between them, a quiet warmth stirred within his heart, a soft knowing, a silent welcome spoken not in words, but in the deep, wordless language of shared purpose. Etienne approached the flame. It hovered just above the marble floor, its soft light reflecting gently upon the smooth surface. He knelt before it, setting the rod carefully upon the stone beside him, his heart beating in quiet harmony with the flame's silent song. The flame stirred. Its soft light flowed gently toward him, folding around him in a quiet embrace. He felt its warmth upon his skin, a gentle touch, soft as the brush of dawn's first light upon a silent sea. The air hummed softly, the walls of the chamber shimmering faintly in the golden glow. And in that moment, Etienne understood. The labyrinth beneath Paris was no mere ossuary, no silent tomb of forgotten bones. It was a living heart, a silent, ancient network that pulsed with the memory of centuries, the dreams of ages past, the silent breath of a world unseen. The 12 were its guardians, silent watchers bound not by time but by purpose. And he, the silent visitor, the seeker drawn by shadowed whispers, stood now at the threshold of something vast, something eternal. The flame whispered softly within him, a song without words, a melody without sound. He closed his eyes, letting its warmth fold around him, letting the silent song of the hidden world carry him gently into the heart of its endless dream. The warmth of the flame seeped into Etienne's skin, not with the scorching heat of fire, but with a gentle, embracing radiance that seemed to settle deep within his bones. His eyes remained closed as the soft hum around him folded into a soundless chord, a resonance that matched the silent thrum of the chamber and the slow, steady beat of his own heart. For a time he knelt unmoving, the world narrowing to that single, quiet presence before him. The golden flame hovered, its soft light casting delicate reflections across the marble floor. The 12 seated figures remained in their silent vigil, their veiled forms outlined in the warm glow, unmoving, yet alive with an awareness that pulsed softly in the space between heartbeats. A soft breath stirred the air, a sound so faint it might have been a mere shift in the fabric of the world. Etienne opened his eyes. The flame had changed. Where before it had danced as a slender wisp of light, it now moved with a slow, flowing grace, curling softly in patterns that echoed the shifting symbols carved upon the thrones of the 12. Its colour deepened, flowing from gold into soft hues of amber and silver, hues shifting gently like the surface of a quiet river beneath a dawn sky. And within its heart, a shape began to form. Etienne watched, breath slow, gaze steady, as the flame folded gently upon itself, its curling light drawing together into the delicate outline of a key. It was slender, wrought from threads of pure light, its form simple yet elegant, its surface marked with the same flowing symbols that adorned the watchers and the rod now resting upon the floor beside him. The key floated within the heart of the flame, its soft glow pulsing gently with a rhythm that matched his own silent heartbeat. The song within the chamber deepened, a silent chord that vibrated softly in the air, in the stone, in the quiet space between shadows. Etienne reached out. His hand moved slowly, reverently, drawn forward by a quiet certainty that rose within him like the first breath of dawn. His fingers closed around the key, a touch as soft as silk, as light as the falling of ash. The flame folded around his hand. Warmth flowed gently into his skin, not searing, but soft, a living presence that moved through him with a grace beyond words. He felt it settle within him, a silent chord that hummed gently in harmony with the living heart of the labyrinth. The key pulsed softly in his grasp. He rose slowly to his feet. The 12 remained silent, their veiled faces turned slightly toward him, though their forms remained unmoving. Yet Etienne felt the shift within the chamber, a soft ripple, as though the silent guardians acknowledged a moment long awaited, a thread of purpose now woven into the endless tapestry of the hidden world. He turned toward the center of the circle. Beyond the flame, the marble floor bore a single mark, a circular emblem etched delicately into the stone, its lines flowing in intricate spiraling patterns that glowed softly beneath the ambient light. At the center of the emblem lay a small, circular depression, smooth and unadorned, its surface gleaming faintly in the chamber's golden hue. Etienne moved toward it. The key in his hand grew warm, its soft pulse flowing gently in rhythm with each step. He approached the emblem, standing at its edge, the soft hum of the chamber folding gently around him like a quiet embrace. Without hesitation, he knelt once more. He placed the key gently within the circular depression. The moment the metal touched the stone, a soft golden light flared, gentle, silent, a bloom of radiance that spread outward in slow, flowing waves. The lines of the emblem came alive, their soft glow unfolding across the marble floor, flowing like water, tracing intricate patterns that spiraled gently toward the thrones of the 12. The chamber responded. The hum deepened, folding softly into a low, resonant chord that echoed faintly through the silent air. The veiled figures remained still, yet the space around them shimmered faintly, a soft ripple that passed gently through the golden mist above. The key dissolved. It flowed gently into the stone, its soft light merging with the glowing patterns that traced their way across the chamber floor. The warmth lingered upon Etienne's hand, a quiet echo of the living presence that now stirred softly beneath the marble beneath him. The floor trembled. Not a violent shaking, but a soft, rhythmic pulse, like the heartbeat of some vast, unseen creature slumbering beneath the earth. The light from the etched patterns flowed gently across the chamber, rising softly along the walls, folding into the swirling mist above. The 12 seated figures turned their veiled faces toward Etienne in perfect unison. The movement was slow, silent, graceful as the turning of leaves upon a quiet wind. Their presence pressed softly upon him, not with the weight of command nor the chill of judgment, but with a quiet, infinite patience. Their eyes remained unseen beneath their veils, yet Etienne felt their silent gaze fold gently around him, a soft awareness that spoke not in words but in a silent, shared understanding. And then, without sound, the floor at the chamber's center began to open. A slender circle of marble dissolved into soft mist, revealing a narrow descending stairway hewn from dark stone, its edges lined with delicate veins of softly glowing silver. The air that flowed from the opening was cool and still, carrying with it a faint fragrance of earth and something older, an ancient scent that stirred the echoes of forgotten centuries. Etienne stood at the threshold. The 12 remained unmoving, their silent vigil unbroken, their veiled faces turned softly toward him in timeless contemplation. He felt the weight of the moment settle quietly upon his shoulders, a quiet knowing that this path, this silent descent, was a journey not merely into the depths of the earth, but into the living heart of a mystery that had waited, patient and unseen, beneath the bones of the city. He stepped forward. The soft hum folded gently around him, a silent chorus that echoed faintly in the spaces between his heartbeats. And without a word, without a sound, Etienne began his descent into the silent heart of the ancient world beneath Paris. The stairway curved downward in a slow, graceful spiral, its steps carved from dark stone veined with threads of pale silver that shimmered softly in the half-light. The air grew cooler as Etienne descended, wrapping around him in gentle, silent currents that stirred the edges of his coat and brushed faintly against his skin. Each footstep echoed with a soft, muted resonance, swallowed almost instantly by the hush that pressed gently upon the corridor. The walls of the stairwell curved inward slightly, smooth and seamless, as though shaped not by hand but by some silent, patient force of nature. Symbols traced faint lines along the stone, delicate spirals and curling marks that shimmered subtly with each step he took. They seemed alive, shifting at the edges of his vision, moving with a slow, dreamlike grace. Etienne held no lantern now. The soft glow that radiated from the walls sufficed, casting a muted, golden light that bathed the passage in a gentle luminescence. It felt as though the very air breathed with a silent rhythm, a heartbeat that resonated softly beneath the earth's skin. He moved with deliberate calm, each step an echo of the one before, his breath slow, steady. The hum he had felt in the chambers above now folded itself around him, a soft chorus of silent chords that stirred faintly in the marrow of his bones. It was neither threatening nor oppressive. Rather, it carried the quiet weight of a presence vast and ancient, a living awareness that seemed to cradle him gently as he moved deeper into the unknown. At length, the stairway opened into a narrow corridor. Etienne stepped onto a floor of polished stone, its surface veined with shifting lines of soft golden light. The corridor stretched ahead, straight and silent, flanked by walls smooth as glass, their surfaces alive with faint, flowing patterns that moved with the slow grace of drifting smoke. He walked forward, the quiet hum folding around his steps. The air grew warmer, not with heat, but with a gentle, embracing warmth settled softly upon his skin. A faint scent lingered in the air, earthy, metallic, tinged with a subtle sweetness that stirred quiet echoes of forgotten places. As he moved, he became aware of soft sounds beyond the edge of hearing. They did not come from any single direction, but seemed to rise from the very walls, a chorus of faint whispers and murmured tones that folded gently into the silent hum. The voices were soft, patient, carrying no words he could recognize, an endless song sung by countless unseen tongues, weaving gently through the fabric of the air. Etienne felt no fear. Instead, a profound calm settled upon him, a quiet certainty that each step carried him closer to the heart of a mystery older than stone, deeper than the roots of the city itself. The corridor began to widen. Its walls arched gracefully outward, curving into a vast open space veiled in soft folds of swirling mist. The air shimmered faintly, alive with soft luminescence, as though the very stone breathed with a quiet inner light. He stepped into a chamber vast and silent. The ceiling soared high above, lost in swirling currents of golden mist that moved with slow, dreamlike grace. The walls curved inward in gentle arcs, their surfaces smooth and alive with flowing patterns of soft light that shifted like the slow unfolding of dawn across a quiet sea. At the center of the chamber stood a single figure. It was tall, taller than any man, and robed in flowing garments of deep, shimmering black, adorned with intricate patterns of silver that traced delicate, spiraling lines across the dark fabric. The figure's face was veiled, its features hidden behind a mask of pale stone marked with soft, curling symbols. The figure stood motionless, hands folded gently upon its chest. Etienne felt its presence before he fully beheld it, a soft awareness that pressed gently upon his senses, vast and silent, carrying neither threat nor invitation. It was a presence that spoke not in voice, but in a deep, resonant knowing, a silent witness that had stood its vigil for centuries untold. He approached with slow, measured steps. The floor beneath his boots shimmered faintly with each step, soft ripples of light unfolding beneath his feet and flowing gently outward in delicate concentric waves. The soft hum of the chamber deepened, folding gently around him, wrapping his every movement in a quiet chorus of silent song. As he neared, the figure stirred, not with haste or violence, but with a slow, deliberate grace, the movement of something ancient waking from a long and patient slumber. The veiled head turned slightly, its unseen gaze settling softly upon him, and then, without sound, the figure extended its hand. In its slender gloved palm rested an object, a slender shard of pale crystal, its surface veined with soft golden light that pulsed gently in rhythm with the hum of the chamber. Etienne reached forward. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, a soft warmth flowed into his skin, a living presence that stirred gently within him, folding itself around his heart like a silent embrace. The shard pulsed softly in his grasp, its light weaving gently into the fabric of the chamber's silent song. The figure inclined its veiled head once slowly, before folding its hands once more upon its chest. And with that simple, silent gesture, Etienne understood. The shard was not a gift, nor a token. It was a fragment, a single delicate thread of the hidden world's endless tapestry, entrusted not to a keeper but to a witness, a bearer of memory. He closed his hand gently around the shard. The soft hum deepened, folding softly into the silent spaces between heartbeats. The figure remained unmoving, its silent vigil unbroken, its presence folding gently into the mist that swirled softly around them. Etienne turned away. The chamber welcomed his movement with a soft, silent sigh, a quiet acknowledgement that echoed softly in the spaces between the walls. The corridor beyond stretched open before him, a path veiled in soft mist and silent song. He stepped forward, the shard warm against his palm, and with each step the silent hum of the hidden world carried him deeper into its endless unfolding dream. The corridor beyond the silent figure curved gently, folding itself deeper into the earth's heart with a grace that seemed almost organic. Etienne walked with quiet, measured steps, his hand curled gently around the shard of crystal. Its warmth seeped softly into his palm, a steady, living presence that pulsed in quiet harmony with the hum of the unseen world surrounding him. The air grew softer as he moved, its coolness tinged with a subtle fragrance of earth and something faintly metallic, familiar yet nameless. The mist that curled along the corridor's edges moved with slow, flowing patterns, shifting in silent waves as though stirred by a breath too ancient to name. The walls shimmered faintly, alive with threads of soft light that flowed in delicate, spiraling designs. They shifted gently at the edge of sight, patterns folding and unfolding like the gentle tide of a silent, unseen sea. Etienne felt them respond subtly to his presence, not with words nor images, but with a quiet, pervasive awareness that flowed softly around him with every step. At length, the corridor opened into another chamber. This space was smaller than those he had seen before, yet no less profound in its quiet majesty. The ceiling arched gently overhead, a soft dome of polished stone veined with slender threads of golden light. The walls curved inward, forming a perfect circle around a single silent figure seated upon a low dais at the chamber's heart. The figure was unlike the veiled watchers above. It sat with its head bowed, long hair flowing in dark, silent waves over its shoulders and down its cloaked form. Its robes shimmered softly in the golden light, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with a quiet, living rhythm. Its face remained unseen, veiled not by cloth, but by a soft, luminous shadow that clung gently to its features. The air was different here. It felt thicker, not oppressive, but dense with a quiet, ancient presence that pressed softly upon the skin and stirred gently in the hollow spaces of the heart. The hum that had followed Etienne on his journey deepened, folding into a single, low note that resonated softly within his chest. He stepped forward. As he did, the figure raised its head. The shadow over its face lifted slightly, revealing not a face of flesh and bone, but a smooth, featureless surface that glowed softly with a pale, inner light. The patterns upon its robes shifted gently, unfolding like the slow bloom of a silent flower. The figure raised a hand. In its slender palm rested a second shard, smaller than the first, its surface gleaming softly in the chamber's gentle light. It pulsed faintly, a soft glow that seemed to mirror the rhythm of Etienne's heartbeat. He felt no fear. The awareness within the chamber pressed softly against his senses, not with demand nor expectation, but with a silent, wordless invitation. A knowing that passed between them in a moment beyond time. He stepped forward and reached out. The shard settled into his hand with a soft, living warmth, its surface smooth beneath his fingertips, its light folding gently into his skin. The hum within the chamber deepened, a soft, resonant chord that seemed to echo through the stone, the air, and the silent spaces within. The figure lowered its hand and bowed its veiled head once more. Etienne stood in the hush of the chamber, feeling the twin shards resting gently in his hands. Their soft, silent pulse a quiet song that unfolded within him like the slow bloom of dawn upon a still, sleeping world. The patterns upon the walls shimmered faintly, and with them a soft whisper stirred, a sound so faint it brushed only the edges of hearing. It was not a voice, nor a word, but a memory, a fragment of something ancient and enduring that flowed gently through the silent air. The bearer walks the unseen path. The whisper folded softly into silence. Etienne turned slowly, the shards warm against his skin. The chamber seemed to exhale, a soft, silent breath that stirred the mist along the floor, folding gently around his feet as he stepped away from the dais. The hum remained, soft and steady, a silent companion in the deep places of the world. He passed through the circular threshold at the chamber's edge. The corridor beyond curved gently once more, folding inward with a grace that spoke of ancient design. The walls shimmered softly, alive with flowing patterns that shifted and danced at the edges of sight. The mist swirled in delicate waves, parting softly before his steps. The two shards pulsed gently in his hands. Their warmth folded into the quiet song that flowed softly through the passage, a melody without words that whispered in the silent spaces of the heart. He felt their presence within him, not as burdens nor keys, but as living threads woven softly into the fabric of his being. The corridor opened once more, this time into a hall vast and silent, a cathedral of stone and mist that stretched beyond the reach of sight. Pillars of pale marble rose in silent ranks, their surfaces veined with soft golden light that pulsed gently in the hush. The air shimmered faintly, alive with a soft, unseen current that stirred the silent veils of mist in slow, graceful patterns. At the heart of the hall stood a great door. It towered tall and silent, its surface wrought from dark, seamless stone adorned with flowing symbols that shimmered faintly in the quiet light. The door bore no handle, no lock, only a single circular depression at its center, smooth and unmarked, waiting. Etienne felt the shards grow warmer in his hands. He stepped forward. The hall seemed to watch in perfect silence, the pillars unmoving, the mist folding softly around his footsteps. The door loomed before him, silent, patient, vast as the unseen world itself. He reached out. The moment the shards touched the depression at the door's heart, a soft light flared, a bloom of golden radiance that flowed outward in slow, delicate waves. The symbols upon the door came alive, shifting and flowing with a grace beyond mortal hand, their lines folding gently into intricate patterns that danced upon the silent stone. The hum deepened. It folded softly into a silent chord that vibrated in the air, in the walls, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. The door responded, not with the sound of stone upon stone, nor with the weight of ancient mechanisms, but with a silent, graceful motion that defied the grasp of time. It opened. Beyond lay a darkness vast and silent, a void untouched by light, waiting with a patience beyond ages. Etienne stepped forward, the shards pulsing softly in his hands. And without sound, without fear, he passed into the silent heart of the hidden world. The darkness beyond the door did not swallow Etienne in cold oblivion, nor did it press upon him with suffocating weight. Instead, it welcomed him, soft, silent, vast as a midnight sea. The air within was cool and still, untouched by any wind or breath, yet not lifeless. It felt alive in a way that transcended mere presence, as if the very space he entered held a quiet, patient awareness. He moved forward with slow, measured steps. The faint pulse of the shards in his hands continued, soft, steady, weaving a silent thread of warmth that guided him through the endless dark. Though his eyes saw no walls, no floor, no ceiling, his feet met solid ground with every step. It was smooth beneath his boots, silent as the surface of still water, yielding nothing to his weight but carrying him forward with silent grace. The dark did not blind him. Instead, it seemed to fold softly around his senses, a quiet, velvet shroud that dulled neither sight nor sound, but wrapped both in a calm, infinite hush. The soft hum he had carried with him since his descent now deepened, folding gently into a low, resonant chord that stirred faintly in the hollow spaces of his heart. And then, far ahead, a light began to bloom. It was faint at first, a single slender thread of golden radiance unfolding upon the horizonless dark. It grew slowly, a soft, silent expansion that flowed with the slow grace of dawn rising over a silent world. The light did not dazzle, nor pierce the dark, but folded into it gently, weaving the two together in a silent dance. Etienne moved toward it. As he walked, the space around him began to change. The ground beneath his feet softened, not in substance, but in feel, a gentle shifting like the silent, unseen currents of a calm sea beneath a drifting vessel. The air grew warmer, carrying with it a faint, sweet fragrance that stirred distant memories not his own, echoes of ancient forests, silent cities, voices whispered in languages lost to time. The light continued to bloom. At last it unfolded into a shape, a vast circular aperture that hovered in the midst of the endless dark. Its rim was wrought of soft, flowing light, delicate patterns curling along its edge in slow, dreamlike motion. The space within its bounds shimmered faintly, alive with soft hues of amber and silver, like the surface of a calm lake touched by the first light of dawn. Etienne approached the threshold. The shards in his hands pulsed gently, their warmth folding softly into the quiet hum that resonated within the air. The light beyond the aperture stirred softly, shifting in delicate patterns that rippled like the slow breath of a sleeping world. He stepped forward. The moment he crossed the threshold, the dark fell away, not vanishing, nor retreating, but folding gently behind him as the world before him unfurled in silent, living colour. He stood upon a narrow path of pale stone, suspended in a vast expanse of soft golden mist. The path stretched ahead, winding gently between towering columns of shimmering crystal that rose like silent sentinels into a sky veiled in swirling light. The air was warm and still, filled with a soft, silent song that hummed gently in the hollow spaces between heartbeats. The mist shifted softly, revealing glimpses of silent structures beyond, archways of translucent stone, walls veined with flowing light, towers that rose and fell like the gentle pulse of a sleeping heart. They stood unmoving, untouched by time or decay, silent as the deep places of the earth. Etienne walked forward. The soft hum folded around him, weaving gently into the rhythm of his steps. The shards in his hands pulsed softly, their light blending with the gentle radiance of the world beyond the aperture. The path curved gently beneath his feet, leading him toward a great structure that rose at the heart of the veiled city. It was vast. A temple, perhaps, or a hall of silent memory. Its walls shimmered softly in the golden mist, veined with flowing patterns of light that shifted gently with every breath of the unseen air. Slender spires rose from its heart, their tips vanishing into the swirling veils of the sky above. At its threshold stood a single figure. It was tall, robed in garments of soft, flowing fabric that shimmered with the hues of twilight, deep blues, soft golds, veiled in delicate patterns of silver. Its face was hidden beneath a pale mask adorned with curling symbols that echoed those upon the shards Etienne carried. The figure raised a hand, a soft warmth flowed outward, a silent greeting. Neither command nor invitation, but a simple, quiet acknowledgement that passed between them in a moment beyond words. Etienne approached. The ground beneath his feet hummed softly, the air folding gently around him with each step. The figure remained unmoving, its presence vast and quiet as the heart of the hidden world. When he stood before it, he felt no fear, only a profound sense of recognition, as if they were both parts of the same silent, endless song. Without words, the figure extended both hands. In its left palm rested a third shard, slender, veined with soft, amber light that pulsed gently in rhythm with the silent hum of the world around them. In its right hand, a vessel, small, delicate, wrought from crystal and silver, its surface alive with flowing patterns of light. Etienne reached out. The moment his fingers touched the shard, its warmth flowed into him, a soft, silent presence that folded gently into the quiet spaces of his heart. The vessel felt cool in his other hand, its surface humming softly with a resonance that echoed faintly within the chamber of his chest. The figure bowed its head once. A soft breath stirred the air, carrying with it a single whisper, a voice that brushed softly against the edges of hearing, neither male nor female, neither command nor plea. Remember. The word folded softly into silence. The figure stepped aside, its veiled form blending gently with the swirling mist beyond. Etienne stood alone at the threshold of the great hall, the shards pulsing softly in one hand, the silent vessel resting gently in the other. And with a slow, steady breath, he stepped forward into the silent heart of the veiled city beyond the world of the waking. The vast hall opened before Etienne in quiet majesty. Its interior stretched beyond the reach of sight, a cathedral of soft, living light and endless silence. The walls soared in seamless arcs of translucent stone, veined with delicate threads of silver and gold that pulsed gently like the slow, rhythmic breath of a slumbering world. The ceiling was lost in a soft haze of swirling mist, alive with faint glimmers that flickered like distant stars upon the veil of dawn. Etienne stepped forward, the soft hum of the chamber folding gently around his movements. The floor beneath his boots was smooth as glass, veined with flowing patterns that shifted softly at the edge of sight. Each step echoed faintly, a soft, muted whisper that faded almost before it was born, swallowed by the living hush that pressed gently upon the hall. The vessel in his left hand remained cool, its crystal surface humming softly in quiet resonance with the air around him. The shards in his right hand pulsed with a steady warmth, their gentle light flowing softly across his fingers. The hall's vastness did not intimidate him. Instead, it welcomed him. Its silent spaces folding gently around his senses, wrapping him in a quiet embrace that felt both new and impossibly familiar. He moved with slow, reverent steps, drawn not by sight nor sound, but by a quiet pull that resonated softly within his chest, a silent thread woven deep within the fabric of his being. As he walked, shapes began to emerge from the mist. They stood along the hall's edges, tall, slender forms robed in garments of soft, flowing fabric that shimmered faintly in the half-light. Their faces remained veiled beneath delicate masks adorned with curling symbols of silver and gold, their hands folded gently before them in silent repose. They did not move, did not speak, yet Etienne felt their awareness as a quiet presence pressing softly upon the air. They watched, not with eyes nor with judgment, but with a silent, infinite patience that bore neither expectation nor fear. He passed between them. The soft hum deepened, folding itself into a low, resonant chord that vibrated gently in the hollow spaces of the heart. The robed figures remained unmoving, their silent vigil unbroken, their presence folding quietly into the living fabric of the hall. At the center of the vast space stood a single structure. It rose from the polished floor like the heart of a silent world, a slender pedestal wrought from pale stone veined with threads of soft, amber light. Upon its surface rested a circular basin of crystal and silver, its rim adorned with intricate patterns that flowed in delicate, spiraling lines. The basin's surface gleamed faintly in the ambient glow, its heart filled with a soft, golden liquid that shimmered with the hues of dawn. Etienne approached. The hum folded gently around him, the air warm and soft as the touch of silk upon skin. The robed figures remained silent at the hall's edge, their forms veiled in soft mist, their presence a quiet, watching calm. The vessel in his hand pulsed gently, a soft, living rhythm that folded into the silent song of the chamber. He stood before the basin. The liquid within was unlike anything he had ever seen. It moved with a slow, flowing grace, its surface alive with soft ripples that shimmered like liquid light. No reflection met his gaze, only the quiet, endless depth of a substance that seemed to pulse with the silent breath of the hidden world. He felt it then, a quiet knowing, soft as the first whisper of dawn upon a still sea. The vessel in his hand was meant for this. With slow, reverent movements, Etienne reached forward and dipped the vessel into the shimmering liquid. The moment it touched the surface, the soft hum deepened, a low, resonant chord that vibrated softly through the air, folding into the silent spaces between heartbeats. The golden liquid flowed gently into the vessel, moving with a grace beyond the motion of hand or gravity, filling it with a soft, glowing light that shimmered faintly upon the crystal's delicate surface. When the vessel was full, Etienne lifted it from the basin. The liquid within remained still, its soft glow pulsing gently in quiet harmony with the chamber's silent song. He held it before him, feeling its warmth fold softly into his skin, a living presence, patient and calm. The pedestal stirred, not with motion, but with a soft unfolding of light. The patterns upon its surface came alive, flowing in delicate, spiraling lines that moved with slow, graceful rhythm. The basin shimmered faintly, its edges folding gently into the soft, golden mist that swirled along the floor. And then the robed figures moved. With slow, synchronized grace, they turned as one, silent forms folding gently into motion, their veiled faces inclining softly toward Etienne. They raised their hands, not in command nor in supplication, but in a quiet, wordless gesture of acknowledgement. A soft wind stirred the hall. It carried with it a single, whispered word, so faint it brushed only the edges of hearing, a soundless breath upon the silent air. Bearer. The whisper folded softly into silence. The figures stepped forward, moving in a slow, flowing circle that gathered around Etienne with a quiet, reverent grace. Their presence pressed softly upon him, not with weight nor with fear, but with a silent, wordless welcome that echoed gently within the quiet spaces of the heart. He stood within their circle. The vessel in his hand pulsed softly, its warmth flowing gently into his skin, folding into the silent hum that filled the vast, endless hall. And in that silent, sacred moment, Etienne understood. He was no intruder here, no thief of ancient secrets, no trespasser upon the hidden world. He was part of it, woven softly into its endless living memory. The figures raised their hands in unison. The light within the vessel flared, a soft bloom of golden radiance that unfolded in delicate waves, flowing gently across the hall, folding into the soft, living song that stirred faintly in the silent air. And with that silent, endless note, Etienne stepped forward, into a memory not his own, into a dream that had waited countless centuries for a heart that would bear it beyond the silent bones of the hidden world. Beneath the shivering heart of Paris, under the weight of centuries, the air grew colder, the walls closer, as Jacques Delacourt ventured deeper into the ossified labyrinth. The feeble beam of his lantern pressed timidly against the darkness, making the shadows sway like silent sentinels, whispering in a tongue only they knew. His breath came slow, steady, a rhythmic echo that mingled with the occasional soft drip of unseen water seeping through ancient limestone. Jacques had learned to fear the silence of the catacombs. It was not the hush of peace, nor the quiet of slumbering dead. It was a consuming stillness, too perfect, too complete, as though the labyrinth itself watched and listened with unseen eyes. But tonight, the silence yielded something else. Faintly, like a melody carried on a reluctant breeze, he heard it, the low, almost imperceptible hum. At first he thought it was the wind. But there was no wind here. The sound wove in and out of the stone corridors, a thread pulling him forward, luring him past stacked femurs and hollow-eyed skulls set into the walls like grotesque mosaics. His fingers brushed against the rough stone, cool and damp beneath his touch, grounding him against the whisper of fear that licked at his mind. The hum grew clearer. It held a rhythm, a pulse, a faint song unlike any Jacques had known, low and mournful, yet oddly beckoning. He moved with slow, deliberate steps, careful not to disturb the centuries-old dust that carpeted the floor. The walls seemed to narrow further, the bones pressing closer together, as though forming a silent congregation awaiting a sermon only they could understand. Jacques rounded a bend, and there, nestled in a hollow framed by fractured stone, stood a small archway he had never noticed before. The entrance was low, hardly reaching his chest, its edge rimmed with faint etchings, symbols half faded by time. Unlike the standard ossuary markers familiar to catacomb explorers, they twisted in delicate spirals, thin as hair, looping into forms that pricked at the edge of recognition, but slipped away before memory could seize them. He knelt slowly, lifting his lantern to cast light within. The passage beyond was narrower still, barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. The hum emanated from within, stronger now, a muted resonance that seemed to vibrate gently against his skin. Jacques hesitated, the weight of the unseen pressing upon him, but curiosity, sharp and irresistible, pulled stronger than caution. He eased himself onto his stomach, the cold stone leaching warmth from his body, and slid forward into the dark. The walls of the tunnel brushed his shoulders, rough and damp, the bones embedded within them, close enough to touch. With each measured crawl, the hum intensified. Not in volume, but in presence, until it filled his head, a sound that felt almost like a thought whispered just beneath consciousness. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Time was treacherous in the catacombs. The air grew thicker, damp with a sweet, cloying scent that Jacques could neither place nor ignore. Then the tunnel widened abruptly, spilling him into a chamber unlike any he had seen in the labyrinth's known maps. It was a room of bones, not the stacked, orderly walls of the ossuary, but an intricate, chaotic weave of skeletal remains entwined together, forming pillars, arches, even what seemed like twisted furniture shaped from femurs and vertebrae. The chamber was large, its ceiling hidden in shadow, and at its center stood a structure, a dais of woven bones upon which rested a single object. Jacques rose slowly, brushing dust from his hands, his lantern trembling slightly in his grasp. The hum vibrated here with palpable force emanating from the object atop the dais, a skull unlike any other in the room. It gleamed faintly under the lantern's glow, its surface smooth as polished marble, yet marked with the same swirling symbols he had seen on the archway. Its eye sockets were deep, yawning voids, yet something within them shimmered faintly, like a dying ember refusing to surrender its last spark. Drawn by something deeper than understanding, Jacques stepped closer. The hum grew softer, becoming a low, murmuring song that pressed gently against his mind, like hands guiding him toward the dice. He reached out, hesitant, his fingertips hovering above the strange skull. As his skin brushed its surface, the chamber exhaled. The air shifted, not with wind, but with a silent pulse, like a heart beating once within the walls of the catacombs. Jacques froze, his breath caught as a sensation rippled through him, a wave of memory not his own. Images flickered behind his eyes, a procession of robed figures moving silently through stone corridors, the weight of centuries folding upon themselves, whispers in a language the world had long forgotten, and a presence, vast and ancient, watching from the deepest shadow. The hum within the chamber grew softer still, yet deeper, vibrating within Jacques' bones. He withdrew his hand slowly, heart pounding in a slow, deliberate rhythm that matched the pulse of the unseen. For a long moment, nothing stirred. Then, from the far end of the chamber, the shadows shifted, not with movement nor with light, but with absence. A patch of darkness deeper than the surrounding gloom began to unfurl, slow and silent, spilling forth like ink dissolving in water. Jacques' eyes widened, breath catching in his throat. The shadows did not move toward him, nor did they threaten. They merely unfolded. A figure took form within them, not stepping forth, but coalescing from the darkness itself, tall, indistinct, robed in the black of forgotten things. Its face was hidden, its presence immense, yet silent. The hum subsided entirely, leaving only a profound silence that pressed upon Jacques' ears. The figure stood unmoving, a quiet sentinel in the heart of the bone-woven chamber. Jacques felt no fear, only the vast, aching sense of standing upon the precipice of something far older, far deeper than man had ever known. The figure inclined its head, a gesture slow, deliberate, almost reverent. Jacques bowed his head in return, moved by an instinct he did not understand. The silence wrapped around them, soft and complete, as if the catacombs themselves held their breath. And then, as silently as it had come, the figure began to dissolve, fading back into the darkness from whence it came. The hum did not return. The chamber remained silent. Jacques stood alone once more, heart steady, mind strangely calm. When he turned to leave, the path back was clear, the tunnel wider, the walls smoother, as though the labyrinth itself now permitted his return. He did not question it. He merely walked, lantern held high, deeper into the embrace of the sleeping catacombs. The corridors welcomed Jacques with an uncanny ease as he retraced his steps, or what he believed were his steps, through the labyrinth. The familiar oppression of the catacombs, that lingering sense of being an intruder beneath the city's skin, had eased into something quieter, something almost expectant. The air no longer pressed coldly against his face, but seemed to wrap gently around him, as though the labyrinth itself acknowledged his passage. He moved without haste, lantern casting its soft amber glow over walls that appeared subtly changed. The ossuary patterns no longer formed the morbid decorations he had known, rows of skulls and femurs stacked in the macabre artistry of the dead, but rather shaped into more fluid, organic forms. The bones curved and twisted into arches that seemed to rise of their own accord, leaning into one another as if whispering secrets Jacques could almost hear but not quite comprehend. The air was still thick with that faint sweet scent, reminiscent of decayed lavender mixed with the damp musk of earth, and it stirred something curious within him, a strange calm that dulled the sharpness of fear. Though his senses remained keen, alert to the minute details around him, a soft current of acceptance wove itself through his thoughts. It was as if the shadows themselves had ceased to be his adversaries and now formed a silent, unseen escort through the underground realm. As Jacques walked, the distant hum he thought had vanished stirred faintly in the deepest corners of his hearing. Not as a sound this time, but as a lingering resonance within his chest, a memory of sound that pulsed in gentle rhythm with his heartbeat. It was neither intrusive nor urgent, but it tethered him subtly, drawing him onward like a half-forgotten song that calls from the edge of slumber. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time in the catacombs stretched and folded upon itself like the labyrinth's winding paths. Jacques' path curved gently, the walls opening into another chamber, a space he could not remember seeing before, though it felt familiar, as though remembered from a dream half recalled at dawn. The room was vast, its boundaries swallowed by the shadows beyond his lantern's reach. The ceiling arched high overhead, adorned with delicate, rib-like supports formed entirely of bones that met in a central apex. Beneath this vaulted crown, the chamber floor spread wide and flat, its surface inlaid with symbols wrought from fragments of ivory and polished stone, forming a great circular motif that glimmered faintly in the soft light. Jacques approached with slow, measured steps, his eyes tracing the intricate patterns beneath his feet. They spiraled inward, weaving through loops and halls of meaning he could not decipher, yet instinctively recognized as ancient, older than the catacombs, older perhaps than the city that slumbered above. The symbols did not speak of death nor of decay, but of something older still, the memory of what lay before life began. At the center of the circle stood a pedestal, smooth and unadorned, rising waist-high from the stone. Upon it rested an object, a simple, weathered key of black iron, its surface etched with delicate runes that shimmered faintly like embers. The key's bow formed a perfect circle, within which sat a tiny shard of crystal, dark and iridescent, shifting softly as though containing a slow-moving storm. Jacques felt his heart quicken, though his steps remained steady. As he drew closer, the hum within his chest stirred again, faint, like the echo of a heartbeat far away, yet undeniably real. The key called to him, not with words, but with a silent invitation woven through the air itself. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, though not with fear. His fingertips brushed the key, and a warmth spread through his skin, a gentle pulse that radiated up his arm and settled quietly at the base of his throat. He closed his fingers around it, lifting it slowly from the pedestal. The key felt heavier than it should, as though it bore the weight of countless unseen hands that had touched it before. The hum ceased entirely. A profound stillness settled over the chamber, not an emptiness, but a sense of completion, of a silent accord reached between him and whatever ancient presence lingered unseen. Jacques cradled the key in his palm, feeling its cool weight and the soft pulse it carried, like a tiny heart sleeping within iron. A faint draught stirred the air behind him. Jacques turned slowly, his lantern casting its thin light into the cavernous dark. From the far side of the chamber, a shape emerged, not a shadow this time, nor a figment of his imagination, but a man. The figure stepped forward with quiet grace, his footsteps soundless upon the stone. He was tall, dressed in robes the color of midnight, their edges embroidered with delicate silver thread that shimmered like starlight. His face was pale, angular, framed by dark hair that fell in loose waves to his shoulders. His eyes... Jacques met his gaze and felt a quiet shock, for the man's eyes reflected not light but a deep, dark shimmer, as though holding within them the quiet depth of the endless catacombs themselves. The man offered a slight nod, neither a greeting nor a warning, but a gesture of recognition. Jacques inclined his head in return, the key warm in his hand. The silence between them stretched soft and unbroken, like a breath held in a shared understanding neither could name. Finally, the man spoke, his voice low, calm, resonant as the chambers themselves. "You have seen what lies beneath. You have held the key that was never meant to be held." His words did not carry judgment nor anger, only a soft weight of knowledge, ancient and vast. Jacques listened, waiting as though caught in a quiet dream he dared not disturb. The man continued, his gaze steady. "This labyrinth was never meant to be a tomb alone. It remembers, it waits, and now, through you, it awakens." Jacques felt no fear, only a deep, reverent awe, as though standing at the threshold of a vast door he had only now begun to perceive. He did not speak, for no words felt adequate beneath the solemn gaze of the robed man. The figure offered a slight incline of his head, almost imperceptible, and then, like a breath exhaled into shadow, he began to fade, his form dissolving softly into the quiet air until nothing remained but the silent hum of memory. Jacques stood alone once more in the heart of the catacombs, the key warm against his palm, and the silent labyrinth stretched before him, waiting. The labyrinth awaited him with a silence so complete it pressed gently against Jacques's very thoughts. He stood for a long while in the great chamber where the robed figure had vanished, his fingers curled softly around the iron key. The stillness was no longer oppressive. It breathed with him, patient and eternal, an unseen companion shadowing his every heartbeat. He slipped the key into the inner pocket of his coat with a reverent care, feeling its soft pulse thrumming faintly against his chest. As the key touched the fabric, the symbols upon its surface shimmered once. A brief flicker of subdued light, then faded into quiet sleep. Jacques took a steadying breath and turned back toward the corridor from which he had come. The path now felt subtly altered, not in shape but in essence. The walls no longer bore the chaotic artistry of stacked bones, but flowed in smooth, dark stone veined with pale, whisper-thin lines of ivory. Where once grim facades of death had greeted him, now elegant archways stretched above his head, their forms graceful, almost cathedral-like in their solemnity. The catacombs were shifting. Jacques moved with calm steps, letting the labyrinth guide him. His lantern's glow flickered softly against the curving walls, the shadows it cast flowing smoothly in its wake. He felt no need to hurry. The tension that had once gripped his heart like a clenched fist was gone, replaced by a quiet expectancy, an understanding that he was no longer merely an explorer, nor a trespasser in forbidden depths. The path wound gently, leading him downward once more. The air grew cooler but not biting, the faint scent of earth mingling with the subtle sweetness that had accompanied him since his encounter with the Chamber of Bones. The soft hum within his chest stirred gently, a thread connecting him to the unseen heartbeat of the labyrinth itself. In time, the corridor opened onto another chamber, smaller than the last but no less profound. Its walls were adorned with intricate carvings, scenes that seemed to shift subtly in the flickering light. Jacques stepped closer, lantern raised, his eyes tracing the silent murals etched deep into the stone. Figures moved in procession across the walls, hooded forms bearing lanterns like his own, descending into the earth in solemn lines. Beneath their feet curled symbols and spirals, ancient sigils woven into the pathways of the catacombs. Above them, a vast shadow arched, not menacing but watchful, a guardian presence whose gaze seemed to fall upon every figure below. Jacques reached out, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the stone. The carvings felt warm beneath his touch, pulsing softly as though alive. As his hand lingered, a sensation rippled gently through his skin, a silent whisper, a memory pressing against the veil of consciousness. He saw flashes, a distant past where solemn brotherhoods descended into these depths, bearing knowledge the world above had long forgotten. They walked not in fear but in devotion, custodians of something hidden beyond mere mortal understanding. They carried keys like his, each one a vessel of silent accord between the living and the unseen. Jacques withdrew his hand slowly, his breath steady, his heart calm. He turned from the carvings and looked deeper into the chamber. At its center stood a circular platform, low and unassuming, upon which rested a simple stone bowl filled with water, so clear it mirrored the soft flicker of his lantern. The surface of the water shimmered faintly, reflecting not the ceiling above, but a vast expanse of stars, as though the bowl held within it a fragment of the night sky itself. He approached with quiet reverence, kneeling before the platform. The air around him grew still, embracing him in a soft hush. He peered into the bowl, expecting perhaps his own reflection, but instead saw depths unfathomable, a void filled with shimmering points of light that shifted gently, forming patterns that stirred at the edges of his memory. As he gazed, a single word echoed softly within his mind, not spoken aloud, but unfolding gently as a thought long forgotten. Remember. The whisper pressed softly against his heart, not a command, nor a plea, but an offering. Jacques leaned closer, his eyes locked upon the silent dance of stars within the bowl. The water rippled once, a single, soft breath upon its surface, and in that fleeting moment images bloomed within his mind. He saw a great door, hidden far beneath the city, its frame woven of bone and stone, its surface inscribed with the same delicate symbols that marked the key within his coat. Before it stood a figure cloaked in shadow, its face hidden, its hands clasped around an iron key identical to his own. Behind the figure stretched an endless procession of silent watchers, hooded, faceless, their presence a quiet river of purpose and patience. Jacques understood then, not with the sharpness of logic, but with the soft certainty of a truth whispered in a dream. The catacombs were more than resting places for the dead. They were the threshold, a sacred boundary between the world of the living and the silent, unseen depths beyond. Those who carried the key were not merely seekers, they were keepers, custodians of a quiet accord that echoed beneath the surface of the waking world. The water stilled once more, its reflection fading back to the soft flicker of his lantern. Jacques closed his eyes briefly, allowing the gentle hum within him to settle. He rose slowly, bowing his head toward the silent bowl in quiet acknowledgement. When he turned away, the passage forward opened softly in the wall before him, a slender archway that had not been there before, inviting and calm. He stepped toward it without hesitation, his lantern casting a gentle glow upon the smooth, dark stone. As he crossed the threshold, a faint murmur stirred in the air around him, a chorus of soft whispers, like the rustle of leaves in a distant wind, weaving gently through the labyrinth's quiet heart. They spoke no words he could understand, yet he felt their meaning settle quietly within his chest. The labyrinth knew him now, and in its silent embrace, Jacques Delacourt walked onward, not as a man seeking answers, but as one who had remembered his place within the ancient, dreaming depths of the catacombs. The labyrinth awaited him with a silence so complete it pressed gently against Jacques' very thoughts. He stood for a long while in the great chamber where the robed figure had vanished, his fingers curled softly around the iron key. The stillness was no longer oppressive. It breathed with him, patient and eternal, an unseen companion, shadowing his every heartbeat. He slipped the key into the inner pocket of his coat with a reverent care, feeling its soft pulse thrumming faintly against his chest. As the key touched the fabric, the symbols upon its surface shimmered once, a brief flicker of subdued light, then faded into quiet sleep. Jacques took a steadying breath and turned back toward the corridor from which he had come. The path now felt subtly altered, not in shape, but in essence. The walls no longer bore the chaotic artistry of stacked bones, but flowed in smooth, dark stone veined with pale, whisper-thin lines of ivory. Where once grim facades of death had greeted him, now elegant archways stretched above his head, their forms graceful, almost cathedral-like in their solemnity. The catacombs were shifting. Jacques moved with calm steps, letting the labyrinth guide him. His lantern's glow flickered softly against the curving walls, the shadows it cast flowing smoothly in its wake. He felt no need to hurry. The tension that had once gripped his heart like a clenched fist was gone, replaced by a quiet expectancy. An understanding that he was no longer merely an explorer, nor a trespasser in forbidden depths. The path wound gently, leading him downward once more. The air grew cooler but not biting, the faint scent of earth mingling with the subtle sweetness that had accompanied him since his encounter with the Chamber of Bones. The soft hum within his chest stirred gently, a thread connecting him to the unseen heartbeat of the labyrinth itself. In time, the corridor opened onto another chamber, smaller than the last but no less profound. Its walls were adorned with intricate carvings, scenes that seemed to shift subtly in the flickering light. Jacques stepped closer, lantern raised, his eyes tracing the silent murals etched deep into the stone. Figures moved in procession across the walls, hooded forms bearing lanterns like his own, descending into the earth in solemn lines. Beneath their feet curled symbols and spirals, ancient sigils woven into the pathways of the catacombs. Above them, a vast shadow arched, not menacing, but watchful, a guardian presence whose gaze seemed to fall upon every figure below. Jacques reached out, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the stone. The carvings felt warm beneath his touch, pulsing softly as though alive. As his hand lingered, a sensation rippled gently through his skin, a silent whisper, a memory pressing against the veil of consciousness. He saw flashes, a distant past where solemn brotherhoods descended into these depths, bearing knowledge the world above had long forgotten. They walked not in fear but in devotion, custodians of something hidden beyond mere mortal understanding. They carried keys like his, each one a vessel of silent accord between the living and the unseen. Jacques withdrew his hand slowly, his breath steady, his heart calm. He turned from the carvings and looked deeper into the chamber. At its center stood a circular platform, low and unassuming, upon which rested a simple stone bowl filled with water so clear it mirrored the soft flicker of his lantern. The surface of the water shimmered faintly, reflecting not the ceiling above, but a vast expanse of stars, as though the bowl held within it a fragment of the night sky itself. He approached with quiet reverence, kneeling before the platform. The air around him grew still, embracing him in a soft hush. He peered into the bowl, expecting perhaps his own reflection, but instead saw depths unfathomable, a void filled with shimmering points of light that shifted gently, forming patterns that stirred at the edges of his memory. As he gazed, a single word echoed softly within his mind, not spoken aloud but unfolding gently as a thought long forgotten. Remember. The whisper pressed softly against his heart, not a command, nor a plea, but an offering. Jacques leaned closer, his eyes locked upon the silent dance of stars within the bowl. The water rippled once, a single soft breath upon its surface, and in that fleeting moment, images bloomed within his mind. He saw a great door, hidden far beneath the city, its frame woven of bone and stone, its surface inscribed with the same delicate symbols that marked the key within his coat. Before it stood a figure cloaked in shadow, its face hidden, its hands clasped around an iron key identical to his own. Behind the figure stretched an endless procession of silent watchers, hooded, faceless, their presence a quiet river of purpose and patience. Jacques understood then, not with the sharpness of logic, but with the soft certainty of a truth whispered in a dream. The catacombs were more than resting places for the dead. They were the threshold, a sacred boundary between the world of the living and the silent, unseen depths beyond. Those who carried the key were not merely seekers, they were keepers, custodians of a quiet accord that echoed beneath the surface of the waking world. The water stilled once more, its reflection fading back to the soft flicker of his lantern. Jacques closed his eyes briefly, allowing the gentle hum within him to settle. He rose slowly, bowing his head toward the silent bowl in quiet acknowledgement. When he turned away, the passage forward opened softly in the wall before him, a slender archway that had not been there before, inviting and calm. He stepped toward it without hesitation, his lantern casting a gentle glow upon the smooth, dark stone. As he crossed the threshold, a faint murmur stirred in the air around him, a chorus of soft whispers like the rustle of leaves in a distant wind, weaving gently through the labyrinth's quiet heart. They spoke no words he could understand, yet he felt their meaning settle quietly within his chest. The labyrinth knew him now, and in its silent embrace Jacques Delacourt walked onward. Not as a man seeking answers, but as one who had remembered his place within the ancient, dreaming depths of the catacombs.